going to call this meeting of the Boylston Regional School Committee to order. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. We got a bit of a full house. Al, do you want to tell us why we have a full house?
Absolutely.
All right.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go. It's a little late now.
You meant to say thank you, but that's okay.
Thank
Yeah. So thanks, Mike. So we'd like to welcome our special guest tonight, who are seated over to my right-hand side. We have the Tohoto Boys Super Bowl champions for the third year in a row. Congratulations. So we are all so very proud of them in the way they represent us on and off the field. On Friday, December 6th, you guys did an incredible job winning the third time in a row Super Bowl with a score of 22-16 at Gillette Stadium. I, along with many people, were there to witness that. You guys handled yourself like a true gentleman, and you represented us very well. So we're really happy, and we really couldn't be more proud of you guys. So congratulations, and thank you for representing our district as well as you guys did. So this is our way tonight, is just to recognize them. We got a lot of emails, and I know Mike did as well too. This is really what it's all about. We want to recognize the really good things that are happening in our district, and this is one of them. So we're very proud of these boys right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Mike to join me if he could. And boys, we're going to have a little bit of a certificate for you guys and a little gift from both administration and the school committee. So when we call your name, we'll ask you to come on and join us. And then we're going to ask you to basically go right around the U shape and shake everybody's hands. I know everyone wants to cheers. So congratulate you guys. So once again, congratulations, boys and girls. So first one is going to be Jack Allen, please. Next, Luna Williams. Nicholas Beck.
Congrats.
Gage, come say thank you. Next, Chase. Congratulations. Dylan Lee. Next, Camden Lewis. Jordan Carino. Brad Dean. Rowan Noel. Maximilian Raposa. Connor Rice. Congratulations.
Here, thank you. You want to just take it over there so we don't have it?
Rondo.
Ryan, how about Ryan?
This is the this is the consequence.
Clayton Way.
They're working on it.
Congratulations. So again, I also want to not only congratulate our boys, I want to congratulate our coaches that went along with it, our athletic director, Matt Picaro, as well too, the fine work they did, as well too. Again, once again, boys, thank you very much for representing our district so well and being true sportsmanship. Nice job. Many other events that are coming up. I know there's a basketball game coming up. I think on Tuesday we're going to do some recognition there as well too. But this was just our way for our students in our school to represent them and congratulate you guys. So once again, thanks a lot. We're really proud of you. You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like. We got about 3 hour meeting ahead. You can speak up and I'll let you guys get as well too. I know many you got some homework and some games and things along with that. So thank you again for coming to town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, don't leave those bags hanging around. Don't leave those bags hanging around. Help yourself. Help yourself. Yeah. What's that? So if I could just say one last thing. So I just want you to, I should have said this earlier. So those certificates read for their extraordinary dedication, achievement. We're proud to present this award in recognition of their outstanding contributions to the West Boylston Tohoto Lions 2024 Super Bowl champions. So that's what the certificate read as well too. So thank you again, and thanks for all being here and congratulating them as well too. Okay.
All right, thanks, Al.
You're welcome.
Congratulations, everybody. Moving on with the meeting. Next up is our public comment section. Is anyone here to make public comment? If you might raise your hand. I see about a few. We're going to keep our public comment session to just about 15 minutes, just because we have a very tight clock tonight. And for public comment, we're going to set a timer for 3 minutes. But if you would, we can start with the first person over there. If you come up front, address the committee with your comments, and we will set a clock so nobody accuses me of cutting them off. How about that? Just right up in the front is perfect. If you could state your name and your address for us, that'd be great. And go ahead.
My name is Mara Goulet. We live at 102 Nature's View Way, Boylston. I have a first grader and a fourth grader at BES, and full disclosure, my husband works at Tonto and he's a coach. Just so you know, this is my letter. So, I'm just going to read the email that I wrote to the school committee and my post that I posted on Facebook. I just wanted to share with you all a note that I posted on the BVRSD Parents Facebook page regarding my concerns over the proposed policy dealing with failing classes and extracurricular activities. I really hope the board and administration are considering the ramifications of this policy on the students and their families. I understand the desire to be the very best district, but I believe that we truly do have, we do have one of the best districts already, and this policy is more for pride and optics than it is for the betterment of our community. Here's my post. I've been debating whether to write something here regarding one of the latest proposals by our school committee, but I've decided that I need to speak up and bring it to the attention of other parents. There's a big push by some members of the committee to make a rule stating that if a Tonto student fails any one class in a semester, that they will not be able to participate in any extracurricular activities at school. This includes sports and clubs. As it stands now, there is a rule in place that if any student is failing 2 classes, they're unable to participate. This is a rule that is also in place with the MIAA for sports. It is also important to note that at Tonto, a 65 is considered failing, whereas in most other districts, 60 is the failing mark. We are already holding our students to a higher standard. I do understand the desire to push students academically, but the only thing that this rule will do in the long run is discriminate against special ed students, students that are English language learners, students suffering with their mental health, students with unstable home lives, and students who are just not considered to be conventional learners. For many students, school is hard, socially and academically. For many, the only reason they go to school and participate in class at all is because of the sports, music, drama, or clubs that they are truly passionate about. Extracurricular activities are crucial to a student's success and overall well-being. Sports and clubs teach real-life lessons that may be more vital than what is taught in the classroom for less traditional learners. This is where students can blossom socially, learn time management skills, and learn the importance of being part of a team or something bigger than themselves. They also serve as a time for kids to really feel like they are part of something. It's where you can be with people who share your interests and make friends you might not otherwise make in class. As a parent of a special education student, I know that middle and high school will likely be a challenge for us as a family. It's unrealistic for us to believe that we will be able to make it through the entire 6 years without hiccups in the class or two. I also realize the devastating consequences that feeling like a failure and being punished for it by taking away the things that she cares about most would have on her. I know that some students may truly be giving their very best at school each day, and their best might just not meet the standards that others have set for them. Middle and high school students are not created equally, and we cannot create rules that favor the more traditional students while ousting out students who may struggle.
Thank you, Mara. That was 3 minutes. Thank you.
I trust you've read the rest of what I had.
We have your email and saw the post. Yes, thank you. Oh, good. We're gonna tag team.
Hi, I'm Joel. Anyway, her husband, one of
Address,
the
Joel?
away from Boylston, Massachusetts, lived here for 41 years.
Thank you.
Okay, I know that some students, sorry, I was paying attention. I know that some students may truly be giving their best at school each day, and their best might just not meet the standards that others have set. Middle school and high school students are not created equally, and we cannot create rules that favor the more traditional students, while icing out those who may struggle. I absolutely believe that this rule will be discriminatory towards these students, while icing them out, and I will not stand by quietly while the district allows us to act. If the goal is to make our district the best, which I feel like a lot of people have stated is our goal, you must do so by including all of your students, even those that may not boost your test scores or state ranking. I would love for our daughter to get through all of her years at times with zero academic or social struggles. The reality is that it will probably not be the case for hers and others like her. As parents, we value academics and instill the importance of hard work, studying, respecting your teachers, and doing your best at school, obviously. But I can imagine speaking on behalf of an entire district and not recognizing that not all of our children will sail through school with no bumps in the road. I hope for the benefit of all of our kids that the committee and superintendent will take a long look at the ramifications of this proposed rule and realize that sometimes the kids are more important than how our district is viewed in a ranking list. This is a great district, and it has been for a very long time, where we have always felt supported and included, and that is more important than a personal agenda to try and create unrealistic standards for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Whitehead, high school English teacher here at Tohoto, and I live in town, 6 Upland Road. Stop on by, some of you. So that got turned. Okay. There's not much I can say that Maura did not say perfectly. The spirit of the proposed language, I don't necessarily disagree with. The idea that a student can fail and still play but not have something in place may not sit well with people, and I understand that. So I would encourage the committee and anyone talking about the topic tonight to look at something in between a compromise. I believe there's some compromise language being put forth. To say there's a hiccup in the road, you're currently failing a class, therefore you can't participate in extracurriculars or sports, that's punitive, and it lacks compassion. Everyone in here, has had a moment in their lives where there's a bump in the road, there's, lack of a better term, things going on outside of work, outside of school, that makes school and work and other priorities secondary. Death, bad health news, tensions at home, divorce, all sorts of things. We've all been there. So to say to a kid, hey, for whatever reason, the class you're taking that you struggle with, and now you have a slight dip in your grades, you're out of basketball, you can't be in play. That's not the spirit of this district. So I would urge you to consider some kind of language where if a student is failing one, they need to get some tutoring, they go to a club to get extra help. That would say, we're here to support you and get you back where you need to be rather than tough luck. That's the practical reality. Utilize your teachers in terms of resources, and here's what we want to do. We don't like this policy. How can we make that a practical reality in the classrooms? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Before we go on, is there Erin?
Erin's right there.
Is it, you're looking to make a comment too? Yep. Hi, Erin. You're looking to make a comment about the handbook, the students
Yes.
failing? Is it consistent with what they've said already?
It's coming from more of a teacher perspective than thinking about the kind of classroom.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Thanks. All right, so hello, my name is Kristen Nelson, 6 Upland Road in Boylston. I'm a teacher at Tohoto. I'm also a coach at Tohoto. I'm a former student athlete from Tohoto as well. And I just wanted to offer my perspective as a teacher. First of all, I believe the proposed policy would be inequitable. In my career, which spans almost 20 years, students in CP classes are much more likely to fail a quarter on a report card than their counterparts in honors and AP classes. I personally have had a number of students who have failed a quarter of history or English in my almost 20 years. Almost 100% of those students were in CP classes. CP students would be disproportionately affected by this policy, and since a number of these students receive special education services, the district could be accused of discrimination. Second, I believe the proposed policy to be misguided. It assumes that failure is an anomaly and unacceptable, and I would ask who in this room has not failed at something. We can't ignore failure and we can't punish kids for it, and as I tell these kids every year, now is the time to fail. When you are young and learning and have the safety net of your teachers in a supportive school environment, I'll help you to learn from your failure and work towards success. This policy would say the opposite, that it is unacceptable to fail. I don't understand how growth can occur without failure. Why would you not acknowledge the failure, give them support to bring their grades up, and keep them engaged with their extracurriculars? Finally, I believe the proposed policy to be counterproductive to the stated goal if the goal is academic rigor. We're constantly being told that the number of students enrolled in AP classes is a measure of our academic rigor. Students take advanced classes in order to challenge themselves. They understand, even at their age, that challenges are inherently difficult and by definition have the possibility of failure. Why would a student take on the challenge and the possibility of failure if they knew that their extracurriculars were under threat? Students often choose to move up from CP to honors, but why would they leave their comfortable grades in CP if failure at honors meant they couldn't do art club anymore? I submit that our honors and AP enrollment would decrease if this policy were put in place, and I completely understand why the students or the parents would make that choice. And in all my years of teaching, the most rigorous students I've had, the ones who work the hardest, which is my understanding of the word rigor, are the ones who have challenges to overcome. I've had honors students who effortlessly skate through school earning A's, and I've had CP students who sweat through every assignment and give it their all, earning F's and B's and finally C's. And that's as high as they go, and that's just fine by me. I'm more proud of them than I am of my effortless A students. If you halt them in their tracks when they get that first F, then they will have nowhere to go. I don't know what you think will happen to these kids by taking away their extracurriculars, but I can assure you that it won't make them want to come to school and do better. Give them an opportunity to improve and still do their extracurriculars, and you'll have them learning and engaged and growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, would you like to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Kane. I live at 10 Andrew Street in Boylston. Thank you for being there. I have a different topic. I want to speak about the need for an enrichment program in our schools. Our students need and deserve access to enrichment opportunities throughout their school day. While our incredible classroom teachers work tirelessly to hold all children to high standards, and we just heard from one of them. It is nearly impossible to provide each child with relevant and challenging enrichment opportunities, on top of everything else that teachers are tasked with. But don't our students deserve this? My eldest son is extremely bright. He finishes his work quickly. He finds little academic challenge in his school day. This has always been his experience. Yet he comes to school each day despite knowing he will not be challenged. He knows his work will be simple, something he has long ago mastered, and he can complete without much thought or effort. He is bored, yet he still shows up. His teacher, Mrs. Reed, is among the best of the best. She works with him and helps him find value in the work presented to him. However, doesn't he deserve more? Don't our children deserve to find value? Don't our children deserve something that excites them in their learning? Don't they deserve something to look forward to? Don't they deserve to see learning come alive in ways that go above and beyond the ordinary? Last year, Liam was fortunate enough to participate in Science with Mrs. Sykes, which was an enrichment opportunity she provided in her first year as a BES principal. During that time, learning came alive for him. As a second grader in that enrichment group, Liam explored aerodynamics, cohesion, adhesion, surface tension, rockets, thrust, among others. It was a transformative experience for him at BES. Unfortunately, scheduling demands have changed, and this group is no longer a possibility. Liam and others like him can no longer participate. But it isn't just about high achievers. All of our students deserve this. All students benefit from enrichment. Regular participation in enrichment opportunities exposes students to new subjects and disciplines, helps them develop their areas of interest, reduces anxiety, increases social and soft skills, provides real-world experience, and enhances confidence in their abilities. I've watched this committee work diligently to ensure our district has the best of the best. You have the power, the commitment, and the tenacity to turn this vision into action. In a district that prides itself on being a step above the rest, don't our students deserve this?
Thank you. I think we have time for one more if you'd like to go up.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Shakir, and I'm captain of the Toronto Girls Varsity Soccer Team. I'm a two-time All-State and All-Central Mass All-Star. I'm a one-time Toronto MVP, and I'm one-time league MVP runner-up. I've been Toronto's leading goal scorer for the last 2 years, beating my 16-goal season last year with 24 goals this season. I've contributed to making history every year, and I've been on this team. Every year I've been on this team. I.e., two-time state semifinalist, two-time Central Mass finalist, one-time Central Mass champion, and I took all CP classes my freshman year. I took 4 honors classes and 1 CP class my sophomore year, and I'm now taking 2 AP classes and 4 honors classes as a junior. I played on a national soccer team for 5 years, a regional soccer team for 1 year, and contributed to the most successful comeback season a team could ever have, going from dead last to first place in our league and second place at regionals. I have committed to a university for soccer, and I struggled with my sophomore math class. And I hate to think of the opportunities lost in this proposition if it had been in place. For some kids, sports is the only reason they come to school. It's also the only way they can afford to go to college. For some kids, they work hard but know their grades aren't outstanding enough to earn them a scholarship for the schools they want. So, their sport is the only way that they can afford to go to college. If a student who is athletically gifted, but not academically gifted, fails a class and gets immediately punished for their sport, you've unknowingly just hurt their chances of affording college. Grades are important, one of the most important and influential things in a high school. Without good grades, you aren't going to succeed, which is what we are all told. However, some of the best minds were called stupid and had bad grades, like for example, Einstein. If you are going to stop an athlete from playing their sport over one failed class, aid in ruining a bright future over somebody who knows they tried hard but can't grasp the concept, who stays after school or during lunch to get help, spends hours on YouTube at home watching videos, researching problems to solve, trying to grasp the concept, but tell them that since they don't understand photosynthesis and biology and failed by a point from 4 to 1, that they are unfit to be an athlete because sports is what's keeping the kid back. Is this really the best way to advocate for the betterment of students? What about the kids who have to work to help sustain themselves and their families so they can go to school, so they can play their sport? The kids who stay up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to get their homework done, oftentimes leaving them exhausted, physically run down, and more susceptible to illness than the normal kid. Student athletes know they need to get good grades. They are threatened by that already. By dropping it from one class to 0, you are adding on to the stress a student athlete already faces in their day-to-day lives. Student athletes are some of the most disciplined people, managing sports, homework, hard classes, and their home lives all at the same time. And because you want to make Tohoto a more academically rigorous place, you are not only jeopardizing the physical health, but their abilities to get into the college they want with a scholarship, because not all students learn the same.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our communications. Does anyone have any communications to add to the folder? All right, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Lori? Lisa? Would anyone like to discuss it? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. Thank you. Moving on to the report section. I don't specifically have anything to report, so Al, what do you have for us?
Great. So thank you. So we have a scheduled Zoom call that we're going to be doing at 5:30. So I have a few minutes at this point. So what I'm going to ask Matthew Dowd, if we could do a little out of order, we'll have a student count representative give his input for us for our school committee. Matthew?
All right, perfect. I'm going to keep it short anyways, because not too much. So recently, because we just came off of winter break, so not too much has been going on around here. Although we've got midterms coming up, so lots of studying going on. Prior to winter break, we had our high school pep rally, and we did a combined spirit week with middle school. It was a lot of fun. We had the whole school was all dressed up for spirit week. We had stall day, which went pretty well, so we'll donate that money that we raised from there to the Special Olympics in a couple of weeks when we get the check. In terms of sports teams, I know we have we obviously recognized our football team earlier, and we've also had some co-op sports teams. I know particularly the Hudson hockey team, which some of our Tohoto kids go to, has been doing really well in their league. I want to say they're close to the top, so that's great to see. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers this, so thank you.
Thank you. Nice job, Matthew. If I'm going to, I'll just continue it after Matthew is going on. If I'm going to go a little out of order, if I could just for a second, about the Berlin PM bus routes. Again, I want to thank both the school committee, John Campbell for the work he did, Paul Mara, Bob Holmes, parents, and most importantly, our students. This process actually went off relatively smoothly. We had no hiccups that were major, at least in changing those bus routes. The PM bus routes in Berlin. I know we inundated you, and I apologize during that Christmas break. We wanted to make sure we got enough information out, so I think we sent it out between John, myself, and Paul multiple times, but we made sure, and it went off. That first day went off seamless, so we're really happy about that. So thank you for that. And again, taking the chance to do something like that mid-year is a big ask, and we did it. And I thank all the parents for that as well too. So thank you for that. Are we good, Joe, or need a few minutes?
Get her up now, yes.
Okay, that'd be great. While that's happening, I just want to talk a little bit about the strategic plan, if I could. At our next school committee meeting, I'm going to ask PM Gould will join us, introduce our steps of developing a strategic plan. She will be meeting with our admin team a little bit earlier before our school committee meeting, and then she'll be joining us. I can't stress enough the importance of having our strategic plan. This is truly a living document for everything that we're going to need for our district. As we're going through the process right now, even with our budget, we need a strategic plan, and we can't wait any longer. And I know we have a portrait of a graduate, some work that has been done with that. That will align, will certainly fall into the umbrella of a strategic plan, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done with that. So again, I'm going to have that being introduced to our admin team next in February, and then our next school committee meeting, she'll come and present to us and say, what does a strategic plan look like, and how about we go there and get into having a completed strategic plan, which honestly, we'll start working on it, but it will take us through the rest of this year, through the summer and deep into the fall before we get it done and ready to move it all along at the same time. We'll be working on that.
Will she have a 3-year plan?
We're working on a 5-year plan.
No, I hope will she have the document of the 3
Yes, already shared that. Sally and I have been meeting with her on a regular basis, giving her all the information, giving her all the portrait of a graduate, giving her all those things as well too. Great. Again, sorry, I apologize for going out of order. I'm going to give a little bit of a technology update if I could. So for a couple of things, I guess, I got to make a couple introductions. For those, the gentleman over there to my right-hand side, at this time, I'd like the pleasure of introducing to you our new interim director of technology, Joe Spizzato. So welcome to the district, Joe. Joe will officially start later in January. He's joining us today for a couple of reasons, just to get accustomed and meet some of our school committee members. He's helping us out with our event that's taking place tonight as well too. On his first day, his first assignment will be working with our principals and seeing their needs and wants and what they need for the remainder of the year. So Joe has a great background of technology, and I had the fortunate pleasure of working with Joe. He was in that role when I was working at Veterinary Academy. So we're glad to really have Joe coming and joining our team as the interim director of technology. And I know, Joe, you're going to talk a little bit afterwards or introduce yourself as well too, but I know we have a 5:30 Zoom call. So on our Zoom call right now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Megan Kennard. Megan has been working on our website with the initial work on Tahanto. One of the things I've heard on the Tahanto site, one of the things I heard from parents, from school committee, from even our students is the need of our website. And I know when I was first approached about coming over here as a superintendent of school, the first thing I went to was the website. I know that new families that are coming on board that are thinking about moving, whether they're going to move into Berlin or Boylston, or they're going to move into West Boylston or Northborough, they're looking at our website to get a really idea of what's taking place in our district. I've heard that from many of my colleagues. I've heard it from parents, and I've heard it from realtors as well too, when they're saying that when families are moving in, are looking to move in. Megan has been working with us and our principals for maybe a couple of months now, getting all what we need and what we want our website to look like. So Megan's going to walk us a little bit through it tonight, so we get to see what it looks like. If this is the direction we're going in for Tahanto, then we'll be easy so it looks consistent across our district, right? So what it will look like in Berlin, what it will look like in Boylston, and what it will look like in the central office as well too. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Megan Kennard.
Thank you, Al. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As Al mentioned, I hope you can all hear me all right. My name is Megan Kennard. I'm a head of marketing communications for Trevi Communications, which is a PR and marketing firm headquartered here in Massachusetts. We work mainly with professional services, hospitality, and in the tech and energy sector, with clients on their public relations activities as well as their digital marketing presence. As Al mentioned, I work with him on the refresh and redesign of the Veterinary Academy website, and wanted to take some of the things that we applied to that and put it to good work here. Since taking on the redesign in mid-November, our primary focus has been really transforming the site into a more user-friendly platform, something where the interface is more familiar in terms of the setup and navigation. And while the previous site certainly provided you with a digital presence, there were a few critical issues that we did come upon, such as errors or outdated links and broken pages. And sometimes, there was confusion created and frustration for users, both as the teachers and parents. There were really entire sections of the site that had never actually been built out with content. So we had a lot of confusion on what page to go to for something in particular, and it was hard to find. So we heard that as a main complaint. And then really just there was no structure. So how you and I would go to a website, what are the pages we expect to see, and the options where what are we anticipating someone is going to be looking for as a parent or a student coming to the site. So what we're trying to do is do this without any, expensive coding, utilizing the existing platform provided to us by Final Site. There are some restrictions, as with any website template. as to what you can do within that platform's interface. But what we're trying to do right now is create a more structured website that eventually you will continue to build upon and optimize. A website is a dynamic marketing tool. It's never done, and there is a lot of work to do to some of the internal pages that we have not yet been able to address. What I'm going to show you now is preliminary. I'm going to show you the existing Tohoto site just quickly, and then pop over to where we are now on the test site, which is where we're building this on the back end. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So as you can see here, this is our existing site. We come to this site and we have a hero image here, which swaps out, which is something that we wanted to clean up a little bit, a part of the site that we did maintain. And our first task, as I mentioned, was trying to correct the sitemap and navigation. We found that a lot of these pages weren't necessarily where they should be, and that these are not really the standard tabs that one would look for to quickly access info. So what we've done is taken everything on this existing site and brought it over to a new site under a more structured nav that Google and search engines would expect to read and in a certain order. We did find that there were cases where we would click on a page and this would be where it brought you. And from here, you then had to come over to this menu and select another page. So we're adding all of these layers to navigation, which, if you all are familiar on your cell phone, which is where a lot of this traffic happens, that can be frustrating. So not very user-friendly. These are just some of the types of things that we wanted to clean up. The less clicking, the better. So what we did was bring over everything we have onto a new site. So this would be the new hero image that I showed you on the old site. This also will rotate through. These can be changed. You can have, I would recommend up to 5, anything you want to highlight. This is just an example. I believe we highlight athletics. And so this is a great place for us to show off some of the best graphic images, that you have. And we'll maintain that here. What we did here was add a more familiar structure to the homepage. So here we have a summary of who Tohoto is. This is important for a number of reasons, mainly Google search. We need to have some text immediately up top on a homepage. So we drafted some language here that, of course, can be vetted and toned up. We've added quick links. So some of the most common content that was requested be at your fingertips for parents. We've added a new section called quick links, which will appear on different pages and have different buttons that are pertinent. So as I showed you before, when I clicked on high school information, it took us to a pretty blank page. Here we're creating more familiar interface with these pages. So now this is where you can come to find all of those things, and you don't have to bounce around to look for it. So that's some of the work that we have been doing thus far. And the other ask, I believe, was calendar. So we have changed the look of the calendar just a bit to be something that I think visually works a lot better than what we had with tabs. It allows parents to get an overview of the entire month. They can swap it to week, day, whatever they prefer. But this would appear, it could appear at the bottom of every page. It could appear on certain pages, but this was also something that was requested that I think makes a big impact. We also added a traditional contact form, which you do not have right now. There is no centralized, sort of generic email that I can tell appears anywhere on the website. I don't know if that's intentional. So this is certainly something that can be removed, but just a sample of the types of content that, again, create a more familiar interface to this home page, and that's what we're going to carry through to all of the internal pages. So I know I've given you kind of a lot to digest. If you want, we can just stop here, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Anybody have any questions for her?
No, this is excellent. Thank you. We've been asking, I think, for the calendar for, I don't know, years. Yeah, so it would be great too if we could add like athletic events. So like kids from the elementary school can see like, oh, there's a basketball on Tuesday night. I want to go support the team or something.
Right, and I'm not sure who is the updater of these, but I certainly agree with you on that. Having one place, for this to go. And I mentioned earlier, and speaking with Joe too, this is something we also did with the other schools. I don't know how this calendar feeds through exactly or who updates it, but there are options for parents to subscribe to calendars. Namely, Google offers this for your cell phone. It'll integrate with your native calendar, and everything will just populate for them, and they won't have to go looking for it either. So that's also an integration that we could probably look at.
That'd be wonderful.
But in the meantime, this is here, so.
It's great. Love it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right.
So I just want, before we let Megan go, so first, Megan, thank you. It's an eye-opening experience for me, right, in walking through this. You sometimes just think a website and it should be an easy thing, but the work that she's doing on the back end of this is absolutely incredible. And it's daunting. And once we get to a spot where we'll be able to just continue to update it. And again, we're making sure this is what we want for the Toronto site. We started there for no other reason. We thought that's where all our kids go. If I chose Berlin over Boylston, I didn't want to go down that road. So I figured if we just started in Toronto, we'd be in the safest spot. And then we'll roll that out if this is what we want into both. So our goal is to have this ready certainly by the end of this year, but in the next couple of months. But we felt it was real important to get in front of school committee to make sure this was a direction that you wanted to go in as well too. Because this was something you brought to my attention, I think in the first school committee meeting I had, that this was a concern of yours as well too.
Excellent.
Questions? Megan, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll be talking to you very soon.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, is my student. That's how old I'm getting.
That's great. I would keep that going.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're really excited about that. She's working, like I said, she met with all of our principals, so they gave her their input, and now she's working with the high school, and then we'll be working with Berlin and Boylston as well too. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Jess, what's up?
I'm just curious, like, to have like the Toronto Day integrated into that, and then like school, the cafeteria calendars integrated in that.
Yeah.
And then having emails to be able to send you reminders about when meetings are, especially in ours.
Yeah. So she's doing on the back end of this stuff, and I keep saying that like I know what I'm talking about, but she's really doing all that part, and then the specifics that we're looking for, we'll be able to. The part that we found really interesting is like having those keywords, and I know she mentioned that those keywords that when you're Googling schools or you're Googling, different things, that our site will pop up, and that's what we want to make sure, and that's why that verbiage is extremely important for that.
You should have asked while she was on, but will it integrate with Arbiter at all for the sports?
One more time?
website? Arbiter is the sports website where all of like the registration goes through and all the sports calendar and the practices are all on Arbiter.
So,
like email.
I think that's a great question, and that will be one of the things that Joe can certainly, obviously you could tell already they've been working together, and for those, Joe has not officially started working with us, like I said earlier, but he's already laying some groundwork so that we can get some of these technology things in place.
To answer your question, we will make it much easier to get the information from Arbiter.
Perfect.
Arbiter also does allow you to sync the calendar to your phone, so you can follow all of Tohonto's athletic calendars just by subscribing.
So even if your kid's not registered for the sport, you can say, okay.
Yes, you have that capability.
Okay.
So, and that's through Arbiter in itself, but we'll work to get things populated on calendars. And even if we have a few different calendars for different pages and how they populate, we're gonna head in that direction.
Joe, did you want to just do a little opening introduce yourselves? I know I introduced you as an adult to an adult, I apologize, but is there something you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited for this. As Al stated, Mr. Gannon stated, I don't start until the 21st. I'm already ready to hit the ground running. I'm working alongside with Megan. We're going to build a strong outline for this new website build out and layout, and then, make it more robust and easier to manage, and also easier to manipulate and find the information that you're looking for. I'm going to be working closely with the administrative teams as we work to build out a 3 to 5 year strategic plan for the technology department. And we got a lot of work to do, but it's going to be fun, and I'm excited for this. So thank you for this opportunity and allowing me to be there.
Thank you, Joe. And the last thing is one of the tasks that will be in the 3 to 5 year technology plan, and I've heard it from every parent as well as teachers and principals, is our initial opening day forms, right? So that you're not filling out all of them by paper, right? So Joe pushed us, even at Veterini, right, to move forward into technology and doing those things. And I can honestly say in a very established old Catholic school, for Joe to be able to move us in that direction we needed to move in, he was able to do that. So it will be an easy task for him to be able to do that for public service. That's where we should be as a district. I mean, I appreciate everyone saying about sports and athletics and extracurricular, all important. This is some of the stuff that is extremely important, not only for our staff, for our students, but for our community, that we are staying current of what's taking place. All that's a big piece of it, and letting people know how great our district is.
Just had a quick question. So, like tomorrow, I know there's the 8th grade transition meeting, which I think is awesome. But I think it would be awesome if we could videotape that and then put it up on the website, so parents that don't come can have access to it, but also kids that are looking to, parents that are looking to transfer in have access to that, or even like 6th graders, 5th graders looking for the future.
So to that point, it will be videotaped. It was videotaped last year. It will be videotaped, and it's on the YouTube channel that the school committee is on. So it definitely would be easier if it was right on the website, but you will have access.
Well, one other thing for Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, one thing that we've been working on for years also is getting cell phone service, like in this building. So many people come in here, you can't use your cell phone like to make an outgoing call unless you're on Wi-Fi. Explore tons of different options. It'll be interesting to get a fresh take. We do a budget and facilities subcommittee with Aaron and Al, and I think it's myself, Lisa, and Beth. So hopefully we can invite you to one, February, March, and open that can of worms up again, because we still don't have cell service in the building, or at least not everywhere, not every phone. It's better than it was.
His role will be instrumental with that, and also when Rich gives his presentation about safety and some of the things that we need to make sure we're having in place, they'll be working closely in that grouping as well.
Great.
All right, thanks, Joe. I just got 2 more things, and I'll be as brief as I can. MSBA project, we're working with that for the roof in Boylston. I've been doing the paperwork along with Aaron and Dan Ayala. The next big deadline for me is January 31st. So we're keeping up with that. I know that people are aware that we're doing a roofing project on Boylston. There is a lot that goes along with it once you get it, right? And there's a lot of paperwork and things that need to go through. But I will keep you guys updated with that. The roofing project is not looking until next summer of 2026. So just know that's where they're at right now. But I'll continue to keep you updated with that. Last thing I want to make you aware of is, as you saw, I sent out community-wide, there was a data breach, right, with our data information system that we use, which is PowerSchool. It didn't just happen just to us. It didn't just happen just in the state of Massachusetts. It happened across the entire country, that there was data breach. You need to know, not that it makes it any better, it was on their end. They had something left open that they shouldn't have left open. Paul and Joe are already working with that. We're attending, and Aaron as well, we've been attending some conferences online, so they're keeping us informed. I know that Aaron reached out to our insurance company as well, too, just to make sure they're aware of it, even though it's really not on our end, it's on PowerSchool's end. But any information that we get from PowerSchool, we will continue to keep the community updated. But I wanted to make sure I let you guys know about that, again, in school committee as well. And that's it, if no one has any questions for me.
Any questions for Al?
Thank you.
Before we move on, Al, I promised Lisa, we have some students in the room who are related to one of our business items at the very end, but sure. If we could let them go right now.
And I think it has to do with the Sweet and Savory. Sorry about that.
Sweet and Savory Club. The Sweet and Savory Club and the stipend approving a new club.
And I think it's later on in your school committee business items.
It is.
Hello, my name is Lucy Barr. And we are asking permission to start a baking, cooking healthy.
It's kind of, we got you like kind of in the middle of the year, but we think it would be a really good club because it'll teach a lot of kids on kind of how to bake on their own, help them to be more creative, and it'll also be a little bit for the teachers because I know there was something similar a few years ago, and Mr. Frame said that she liked when students would like mix food items for the teachers that they could take home to their families. So after a long day, they would have some food for their children that they wouldn't have to work so hard for. And during the club, we would have like a lot of ideas and stuff, and a lot of stuff to keep people active.
We just want to help people, inform people on how to cook on their own and how to bake things on their own because it's hard and it's not something that everyone gets taught. And as for living on our own, getting older, growing up, we have more maturity, more about ourselves, and there's like some things that we have to do at home, and this is where we can teach them how to cook.
Yeah, and we already have a lot of planning set. We had a Google Doc that I don't know if it's been shared with you yet, but we already have the health room notification. We have some supplies already that's already been up there, but we would need to get some food items and maybe some more supplies just in case. We already have some ideas that we could get some money into either the PTO or any other grants in general. We asked some local supermarkets. We haven't heard back from them yet.
Great.
But we were also looking at if those don't work out, we could have like student computers, like maybe like around $15 a month. But as we go, we'll kind of change it to see like how much like, we're actually making and how much we're actually making and stuff like that.
Nice job, guys. I'm just going to add two things to it. I talked to your principal today and Sally as well too. So we're all set with the wellness policy because this will be happening after school hours, right? And the other thing, we're going to be paying very close attention to anyone with allergies as well too. So we know that we covered those two things to make sure we're good with those. But it goes right along with the parent about enrichment, right? So what a great activity for these kids and self-initiated. So thank you guys. So what they're looking for is a vote on allowing this to happen. I know it goes a little out of order in your business items.
That's okay. Bring it up.
Okay, great. Any questions for our students?
Great idea. Such a good idea.
It's a nice job. Better than I did speaking to a crowd. Nice work. Nice work.
Very good. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
We can probably do the vote right now so they can hear the result, right? So could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the Sweet and Savory Club and Club stipend? Jess? I heard Lisa. Discussion?
I just want to say I'm really in favor of this because research always shows that people who cook for themselves are the healthiest. And that's one of the, major contributors to health. So it's really great. And a lot of people don't know how to cook, even adults. So yeah, it's really great.
Can we hear a little bit about the stipend?
Yes.
Says, so the stipend is for, and they already have an advisor who they've asked and has said she was willing to do that, Sue Boat. And it's $738, which is the standard stipend for the clubs that are running for this school year on the payment matrix. So that's what.
And the only thing, Lisa, we talked about, we prorated, right? Because they're not doing a full year on that. So I just want to make sure we do that as well too.
Right.
And then how are they paying for the food and all of the items they need?
Fundraising.
They're going to do fundraising. That's awesome. All right.
So if you're looking for people to take their sourdough starters, they're probably like $5 to $10 a batch, but so.
Let's just talking about this.
The only thing I want to ask Al, so Al mentioned about allergies, being aware of allergies and the wellness policy. I know in the doc that I read, it mentioned possibly bringing the food to outside parties outside of the school. maybe check in with maybe the cafeteria manager, just to make sure everything is covered from like serve safe certifications or anything else that might be needed. Just if it's going outside the school, right? It's probably an
And I
issue.
think that's some of the stuff they gotta work out as a new club, right? So I think they're looking to get this off the ground, and I would say even in the future, I'm sure anyone in this room has some great restaurants they attend and might know a waiter, waitress, or a chef that goes along with that, right? That we welcome them to come into our school and stuff. So that'd be wonderful. So I think this is the start of something really good, but I think there's a lot of logistics we gotta work out before we're in that final push, but we didn't, sorry, I'm speaking for you, Lisa, but I know they didn't want to move forward without making sure a new club was approved financially as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Good
Nice job,
Nice-
boys and girls.
nice
Nice
work.
job. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Any
you.
other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So at the next school committee meeting, you got a bacon first? Sorry, just joking. Okay.
All right, we are at our administrator updates.
Rich, Mr. Cameron. Good. So as you know, Rich is, we had an event, a Holland event that took place earlier in this year at Tohoto. At that point, we realized that we had some things we need to tighten up and be consistent across our entire district in terms of safety. So Rich has been our newly appointed safety liaison on top of the role of being the assistant principal at Tohoto. So he's been working with our chiefs of police, our fire captains, our principals, and I felt it was important that he give you a little bit of update what's happening with our district, because that's at the beginning of the year, and here we are almost halfway through. So I thought it was important for you guys to hear from Rich. Mr. Cameron, and by the way, he's doing incredible work doing this work for us. So thank you.
Well, appreciate the introduction, and just having the floor tonight to just give you guys an update on all the work that we've done and all that we plan to do. So as you guys know from our October school committee meeting that we had enlisted the expertise of Rob Rosella, who's been served long-term as Worcester Public Schools safety director. I was also appointed as the district safety liaison to work with our local police, first responders, our administrative team to really bring out all these practices, conduct a full comprehensive safety audit of where we're currently at, and roll out unified practices throughout the entire district. So tonight will be an update on all that we have done thus far, but also our action items for what we plan to do for the remainder of the year. Okay? So I tried breaking it down, organizing this information to like 4 different topics that we've really been kind of harping on as like the heart of our work. First, the big piece here is obviously conducting a comprehensive review of all of our current emergency response protocols, seeing where our strengths are, where our areas of improvement are needed, and just evolving too with everything else that happens in the world and making sure that we're up to speed with our practices and aligning with local law enforcement in terms of what we need to be ready for and prepared for. Second piece, and this is where a lot of the work comes, is really standardizing our practices across the district. Having unified practices at every single school so that for our kids, our families, when they're in kindergarten all the way through 12, the same messages are given from when we're sending everything out. Same vocabulary, same messages sent home. Families know what to expect. They know what's coming down the line and how we operate and how to respond to safety situations. 3, the big piece of it, implementing proactive strategies. Really taking a look at how we continue to educate our families and our students. 9 times out of 10, we're proactive of how to respond in these situations. We can definitely limit the amount of fallout or things that occur and really handle these problems up front before they become an actual issue. And finally, the 4th item here that we're going to talk about today is providing targeted training opportunities for all of our staff across the district so that people in our buildings are prepared to handle emergency situations as they arise. First item on the docket is a comprehensive review of emergency response protocols. This is some of the work that we have done recently, and I do want to start just to comment on our memorandum of understanding. To just highlight, for this district coming on board in terms of year 2, I have to stress the relationship that we have with our local first responders. We work very closely with law enforcement, our fire chiefs. It's phenomenal in terms of the time that they dedicate working with us and sitting down and developing these plans and making sure that we're up to speed on everything. While Berlin, everyone knows Officer Goody is a staple for the Berlin Public Schools. And when you take a look at it for us, while we don't have a resource officer on site, we have a point of contact through this. And I can say anytime that we have an issue in Boylston, Sergeant Matt Ryle is a phone call away to problem solve with any situation that comes on up. That has not historically been the case of the districts that I've worked at. You have that type of connection where any situation you have a quick, direct line to problem solve. So the relationship that we continue to conduct and operate one is one that's outstanding that I do want to highlight and communicate today. One of the first pieces that we have embedded in work that we conducted, we hit the ground running with implementing what's called the threat protocol. For this piece here, we sat down with both police chiefs, we sat down with our administration team and really took a look at developing threat protocols and how we handle threats when they occur. This is the big new piece. This is the training that all of our chiefs are actually going to. It was actually the timing. They had actually gone to this training a week before we sat down and developed it. So this is the big piece when you took a look at evolving strategies, evolving practices, and what we continue to implement. This threat protocol, when we held our safety presentation for all of our staff, we reviewed this with them, going over in terms of what you do when a threat comes around. The short of it, I tried to highlight here, is just really framing it is that we don't deal with any threat on our own, all right? This is a collaborative practice that we work with our local law enforcement. When things happen, we reach out and we problem solve. It's our job as administrators to provide the details, provide the incident, share the interviews and where we're at currently with as much accurate information we can provide at the time. But at the end of the day, they're going to process this information, they're going to guide. When police come to site, they are the ones who are in charge, and it's our job then to really implement our internal practices to make sure all kids are safe, all kids are accounted for, and follow the lead. Right? A lot of this too, just to highlight a couple of areas, is just our relationship. Going through the process of, we sat down to take a look at what law enforcement does, what we do on our end in terms of steps that may need to take place in terms of conducting home visits, interviewing students, and then just us in terms of really determining what the response is, what type of safety measure is appropriate at the time, whether it's going to be a lockdown or whether it's going to be an evacuation with problem solving with the police. Okay, so just really kind of framing this set, and then at the end of the day, determining what measures may come after the fact too. So this is fully implemented at this time in terms of problem solving anything that comes up to place. And as I said, we took the time to go over this all with our staff and really communicating that if a threat occurs, all right, what do you do? And we really highlighted in terms of during school hours, bringing this to administration. It's not their job to assess the level of the threat. And we take it on our own to work with our police department to determine the next steps of what we do in that specific situation. Outside of school hours, really continuing to stress too, if something occurs after school hours, contact us, but contact the police. Having our staff know that they can reach out, that families can reach out, that these things we need to continue that process of having communication with police and responding to any type of threat, whether it be a threat that's made to others or a threat upon themselves as well. That these are the steps we need to occur.
Rich, can I just interrupt you, just if you go back once? So that's a big piece, that after school hours that we're stressing and bringing it out. We had the conversation with our local police officers and our police chiefs. Like, we're all in this together, right? It's just not administration here. It's also school committee. It's our parents. It's our students. If there's any concern, their job is to contact the local police. And we have to make sure the police now have protocols in place, and they do, because we're working in collaboration. That's a big change for us in how we're handling situations as well. Sorry.
This has to be communicated to parents, though.
Absolutely, and a lot of work to come. So when we get to kind of that third piece, it's huge. And we'd love some feedback in terms of creative ways we stay stuff that we have done, but there's a lot of work that's going to be done.
And the way I've been handling things with Rich and the principals, it goes from the school committee first. So I don't want you seeing something as a parent and you're saying, wait a minute, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this, or I don't believe in this. When we're looking at table of organization after our parents and families, it's school committee. So I have to make sure that you guys are on board with this and believe before we move forward. So that's why we're here today. Good. Sorry, Rich.
No, please. And also, honestly, interject anytime, any feedback, any questions you have to answer. For this piece too, another piece that we've implemented as of this school year is that every school at this time, we have sat down and developed what's called school building response team. And this is really just internal practices of laying out the who does what, okay? Who is the person that's going to be responsible for speaking to the police when they arrive on site? Who's going to be in charge of making sure that all these students are accounted for? Who deals with the media? Who deals with the child who's struggling when an incident takes place, all right? Very important to highlight each person, not just a primary, a secondary as well, planning for people are out, so that everybody knows when crisis situations occur, what your job is. It's very tough to delegate in the moment of who does what, so this is something that we have built in to really harp on each of the individual jobs and roles and responsibilities of all of our staff. This is not up there. We have kind of like some plans that are put forward, they're going to be blank just because, some confidential.
And that will be shared with the police.
Yes.
And there's one last thing. So one of the things we're not sharing is, right, so some of this stuff will be in executive session when we move into like what our threats are and what our weaknesses are, that Rich will come in executive session with our chiefs of police and eventually tell us, like, this is where we're at and how we're going forward.
And I think the big question at the end of the day is if something was to happen tomorrow at one of our schools, are we prepared to respond to any threat that comes up or any emergency action? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, and then some. We will continue to go through a comprehensive review of all of our current plans, continue to build up on them, continue to develop the roles. This will be a lot more of the work to come. Action item number 2, standardizing all emergency procedures and resources across the district. Part of our professional development that we ran when we held our safety meeting for all staff is we reviewed every single drill that we conduct. Believe it or not, we conduct a monthly drill with our local first responders, and it's not just fire drills anymore. We have to adapt to all the things that take place in the outside world, and these are the types of drills that the more you practice, that's the piece. So really for us, in terms of looking at consistent language of what these drills are and how we operate. When you take a look at it, if I say, if a fire drill happened right now and that alarm went off, I think it's safe to say that every single person in this room would know exactly what to do because it's ingrained in us. We practice this since we're little, all the way up through. For us, it's our job and our responsibility to make sure that any of these situations that arise for our kids, they are as prepared in terms of how they operate and what those steps are. So these are the drills that we will all be running as a district and in collaboration with our local law enforcement and fire department. And we will continue to practice these and spend time going with our staff, reviewing all of our procedures and what we do on our end. School announcements for emergencies. For this piece here, it's really about a communication piece and unifying our practices. As I said early on, I think it's very important that we're all hearing the same thing, that families are getting the same messages at home. As of right now, we do have, if there is ever an emergency that takes place, the first response would always be through the intercom system. It would be the primary means of notification if the building or something occurs. We have unified messages at all of our schools where it's lined up, that's going to be the same script that occurs that is read. So from our students, when they're in kindergarten, they're familiar with it. They hear it, they understand it. Or in terms of sending messages out to families, staff, students through our school messenger system, we've now updated the system where we have text message, we have automated voice message, and also email. All 3 means of communication that go out to all families once this takes place. All of those messages are also unified for the entire district, so it's the same messages for every school.
So it's a click of a button for our administrators instead of stopping for that nervous moment while you're dealing with a situation and trying to get a message out and trying to get that out in a timely manner. So we have someone that's in charge of that. That's part of our plan as well too, and it's all done, all automated and ready to go.
And all of our administrative assistants have been trained on how to do that. They got a nice little laminated card right by their desk so they can click the buttons. We run those drills and have them go through that process. So it's a nice, easy step for everybody. A lot of these slides here, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty, but in short, we've done a full inventory of all of what we have for resources, walkie-talkies, go buckets, making sure that we have what we need, tourniquets, other things that we need to bring in. There is still stuff that we need to purchase. There's wants, there's not needs at this time, there are wants that we're going to discuss in terms of looking at budgetary purposes and seeing what we can bring in to make sure that across the board we have what we need in each building, and every building administrator feels good about the resources that they have. Right? This is a piece too that I'll just highlight once again at our recent safety presentation. It's just the do's and don'ts too about safety. This is stuff that needs to be revisited. The tailgating, the proppings of doors, that's stuff that you just kind of have conversations to remind. But just reminders for everyone to hear it. This is the stuff that you refresh. Good piece to discuss and talk about for the common norms that when it comes to safety and making sure that our staff are all up to date and hear it on a regular basis. 3, proactive education and communication strategies for students and families. For this piece here, really, I think, when you think back for elementary school, my girls bring home the little rulers that have the call 911 in case of an emergency. We bring in the police and the fire department so that they can see them, so that they know who they are, so that they're comfortable. This work is not done after elementary school. All right. If anything, the problems get more complicated as they get older. So we want to continue doing a lot of work in the proactive department, where we're continuing to educate our students, our staff, on best practices in terms of how to handle situations as their world evolves. So one that we had recently, I had to include a picture. This was a nice one that was posted on Joe Early, District Attorney's social media pages. We recently had a cyber safety and bullying presentation brought in by the District Attorney's Office. Really good for our middle school. And honestly, when we take a look at it, looking as technology and social media is becoming more and more relevant based on age, we'll talk about, tailoring it as needed. Really just highlighting everything for our students in terms of what you put out there into the world. Nowadays, unfortunately, it's there. And it's there to stay. And we have to have these conversations. We want to prepare our kids for these difficult things that come up. Because once again, if we can be proactive, we solve the problems in advance. Right? Big piece with this too, what I loved about this training, is really stress having a point person. How when something happens, who do you talk to? What do you do? It's kind of more the age-appropriate ruler of calling 911 for emergencies, but now you're establishing kind of other lines of communication for our kids. We look for a lot of these ways to kind of bridge the gap for our students. For middle school, once they come on up to Tohoto, we do a lot of social emotional instructional pieces, pushing in our counselors into the classroom, getting them to know who they can talk to when something comes up. See something, say something, an anonymous Google form the students can use to report things. Our counselors, I have to say, are phenomenal in terms of providing resources and sending newsletters out to families. But these are all the pieces. And this is where we want the feedback on. What do we want our district to get for information? How do we continue to bridge that communication piece? What do you do when things come up and how we can support our families? So this is a big piece, and we want to put a lot of work into this in terms of upcoming appropriate speakers and continuing to educate our kids as we come down the line. Last but not least, just targeted opportunities for our staff for trainings. At the end of the day, the more people who are here, who are certified for when emergency situations come up, the better prepared we are. Okay? We are going to be offering 2 separate trainings upcoming. We've worked with both John Naziata and Joe Flanagan to run a CPR and AED training upcoming that we have for both our high school and for our elementary schools. And it's just great. I mean, I will say for the response that we've had, it's been phenomenal. We have 20 people going through the training. The reason why I'm coming up to Tohoto, and the right people too. So for example, we have one of our cafeteria workers who also runs the basketball games, the AED machine's right there. That's going to be, you could ask for a better point person. We make sure we get the right people involved to make sure that we are set for all scenarios. So CPR is going to be one that's coming up on one of our half days. We also are going to have a stop and bleed training. This is going to be the Boylston Police Department is going to be running this for us. This is part of buying tourniquets and making sure that we're offering appropriate trainings as if there is ever a wound or severe injury. This is your #1 case that causes death in these situations. We also will continue to run safety care crisis prevention training. I am one of the trainers here for the district, and we run this for de-escalation in terms of working with students who struggle with mental health or other factors to really kind of prepare our staff with the best strategies in terms of dealing and managing crisis situations when they come up for individuals. So it is a lot of information. For the piece, I tried to summarize it as much as possible. The piece that everyone has is there's already a lot of work that's been done. There's a lot to do. So, for this piece, we take a look at it. For me, safety's always been number one. It's the biggest thing. We want our families that when you're sending your kids to school, you know that they're in good hands. And we want people to be prepared and know the expectations. The more that we can help communicate that and develop our practices, the better. With that being said, due to time, if you guys have any questions, any feedback, any suggestions, I'm happy to take them, or you can always send an email if you have a good suggestion that you come up with. We're always happy to.
I appreciate the speed in which the cyber safety presentation was done with the students. I know there was some mention of doing it with parents and doing a community one. Is that still on the docket?
It is.
Yep. So that's for me. I talked to Julia Baranowski. We felt like the holiday season was not the time to do it. So we would touch base. We felt after the winter, those cold nights, that we'd start right probably in the February, March and having one. She could do multiple ones. And one of the things I actually even talked to Meg Kennard about is after she does that presentation, that we could put it on our district website as well too. So that's on me, not Rich, that I'm just waiting for that, the holiday season to end. No, good. No, it's good reminder for me. So thank you. This is great work we've been doing, right? It's work that we should have done earlier, and now we're doing it, and it's still ongoing for us to do. But I know some, people sitting in this room had some concerns about, the way things were handled, and it's a learning process for us all. But now we have it all together, and this way it's consistent across our district, not only for our staff, but for our parents, but most importantly for the safety of our children as well too. Like I said, Rich is doing a nice job leading this and running those meetings with our chiefs of police and our administrators as well too. And any of this professional learning to stop the bleed, incredible professional learning. If anyone in this room wants to attend, let us know that as well too. Never mind the CPR and AED.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rich. Nice job. Nice job with that, Rich. Thank you.
Lisa, you're next.
Okay, so good evening, and thank you so much for providing this opportunity. There was a document shared in the drive for you. I'm just going to highlight a couple of highlights from Tohoto. We often talk about the high school, but I did want to showcase a wonderful interdisciplinary opportunity that showcased the 7th grade art classes and science classes working together, and where students demonstrated an animal's adaptability to their environment. This is really innovative and a really well-received activity, and the students really enjoyed it and really got them engaged in their learning. We have also continued to seek opportunities for our students to engage with their community, and exploring diverse interests. We are thankful for representatives from the Berlin Conservation Commission who came to our school council and presented opportunities to establish some active community participation among our students, as well as some leadership opportunities. So after that meeting, I did send out a survey to our students, asking them, because there was a huge list of available opportunities that our students could participate in. So to kind of focus those efforts, I sent out a survey to identify which of those they'd be most interested in, along with some questions around the various pathways that we could consider, as we already have the infrastructure for certain things within our building that we could tap into. So with these insights, we can tailor our offerings and understand what type of funding we may need to support these efforts. And the survey revealed a strong desire for coursework in business, in carpentry, and as well as the use of this media center. And so Mr. Gannon and I have been talking about the opportunities to do that and possibly starting using this space preliminarily for a club, because right now we don't have the capacity for teaching or coursework, but really involving students in a club. So that's something that's in the work. I was, prior to them going, and I thank you, Mike, for having the students go before, but I'm very proud of them thinking about something they're passionate about, and that's something that all of us encourage our students to, to do. So thank you for that opportunity. Any questions?
Anybody?
So there's one other thing we need to inform you from the high school level. There's some courses that we're going to need approved that we didn't get into the drive, and I apologize for that. We're going to send them to you. We might have to, and I'll have to talk to Mike about maybe having a remote school committee meeting sometime in late January, just to get that first reading done on those courses that she spoke about last school committee meeting, those AP classes, so that this way then in February, at our first school committee meeting in February, you can have that second read and vote on them, so we can start the student handbook and the course selection book as well too. So I apologize. We'll talk about maybe doing something. I own that. We have to get those in there, so we didn't get them in the drive for you guys, and we'll make sure that's on the agenda for maybe a meeting in later January.
Sure, I'm sure we can figure something out.
Thanks.
Lisa, your third point in the report that you put in the drive mentions the transition for 8th grade students moving into high school.
Yes, so that is, programming for our life skills class. So my mentor and I are working on transitional learning services, and we visited one program and we have 2 more scheduled, just to understand what opportunities are available for students and the different programming that's available. I live kind of right around the corner from the Shrewsbury opportunity. They have their life skills program actually has a storefront. So, and I've gone there. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and to understand how different districts pull that together is really valuable.
Thanks. Anybody? Other questions?
It's just so nice to see cooking and maybe carpentry and then media come back.
This is a great space right here. This is a great space, and we want to use it. And we've talked about that more than just a meeting room and a conference room and a yoga studio. And those are all great resources. But this is certainly something that we talk about the hook, right? That's going to keep our students, or maybe entice more students to move into our community. This piece alone is incredible. I was talking to Lisa, and I think I was talking to a few of you in Westfield. The superintendent wanted to build an aviation type of program, and it started as a club, and everyone's like, aviation, and now is one of the most sought after school districts to get into for that program they have there. So this is certainly something. We talk about kids videoing and TikTok and all the videos they do. We have the capability right here in our district. So it's certainly something we're going to initiate with the.
If I could just go on the media point, because I know you talked about this room, which is awesome, but also on the same lines, the auditorium, the control booth in the auditorium has a lot of really awesome, like I've had the chance to mess around with some of it. It is really awesome up there too. There's lots you can do with that as well.
Yeah. I used to school that did the morning news, right? So even if no matter which school you're at, the high school did the sort of morning news type of thing. So it's not just behind the scenes, but also in front. So that's certainly something we're hoping to move forward to. So we're starting those conversations, and it's a great conversation to have here.
Excellent. Next up will be the Sykes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of the positive things the DES staff are completing. One of the things I want to highlight is something we came up with, Math on the Move. This is the year of math, as you know it, and we're always looking at ways to bring more math to the students. And one of the things we noticed was arrival time. Parents are waiting there 20 to 30 minutes some days, waiting to drop off their children, and it's time that they're sitting there with their children. So we came up with this Math on the Move that kind of took its life of its own. We came up with problems that they can do with their children while they're waiting. And it opened up something, I think, that took a life of its own. Parents love it. They want to see more of it. What started out, which was the car and truck drop-off, we now have walkers that we wanted to incorporate there because they felt a little left out. We brought it to the bus students, a little bit more challenging because, there aren't those adults there to do it with. We're working on that. We brought it a couple times, and we usually use teachers for that. So examples of what we've done, we put things up there for geometry, triangles, talking about angles, using the number of tires on your car. Add that to the number of students in your car. And when you talk to children about this, I've opened up conversations, well, tires, I have a spare. Does that count? Well, do you want it to count? So they have that conversation with the parents, adding, multiplying, depending on the age of their students, and really opening up that math conversation with their families or older siblings and younger siblings. We had 2 4th graders tally it at the end, so they would give a thumbs up if it was greater than 10, a thumbs down or a wave if it was less than 10. 2 4th graders tallied that in cold. They wanted to do that because of that. Now I have other students saying, can I do it next time? Can I do it? So it's really opening up that conversation. We had an amazing 3rd grader create a graph, and then because he needed a challenge, he made some more graphs for us a little bit later in the day. So it's really opening up that math idea. More to do, and the team is bringing these ideas into the classroom. So when you go into the classrooms, if you're there to visit, you can build upon what they've done in the morning. Case in point, triangles. How many triangles did you see today? So we're having a lot of fun with that, and it's the year of math, and we're just building upon those skills. So it's really been a team effort, and it's just taken a life of its own. And that downtime that we have sometimes. Another thing I just want to highlight is, we've done the wind walk again around math. And usually when you do the what I need now, you're looking for small groups, you're looking for that differentiating for the high group, middle group, low group, what those students need to really succeed. What is challenging about it is staffing. If you have 2 teachers in a grade, they have those groups that are going across the grades. So case in point, 4th grade, I'm going to highlight. They have 2 teachers, they might have paraprofessional in there. You might have 6 groups. They thought outside the box and invited some parents in to help support these groups. So parents are coming in running these groups, not every day. But they came to me and I said, absolutely. They're organizing what the parents are presenting, they're overseeing it, but now we have another set of adults in there. And today I met them for a grade level meeting, and above and beyond that, they're not bringing them in for science. So using that, building up those relationships, it also allows the parents to see what's going on in the classroom. So A+ for them just for thinking outside the box. Thank you. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I expected to see some math on the move as we came in today. Little screen.
You can't put your wish for.
Movie screen advertisements or something.
Balloons,
Numbers are balloons. So I have to tell you, as a superintendent, you have to fill a time on learning report, right? And it was very difficult during COVID, right? When you talk about bell-to-bell teaching that's taken place in Boylston, you have to give a lot of credit to the work that Cindy's doing there. Even before the kids, the bell has rung, there's education taking place that we're not in any jeopardy of worried about our time on learning, but certainly that's added time that she's putting into it. So, because sometimes there's a lot of wasted time. If you think about those last 10 minutes where the kids are packing up, or those first, and you multiply that times 180 days, there's a lot of time there. But she's seizing every opportunity. So well done, Cindy, on that. Thank you.
Nice. Mr. Campbell.
I will be brief. We've got my report. The only thing I'm going to mention just real quickly is the work that Tia Trapasso, our 5th grade teacher, is doing with the student counseling program. One of our goals was to help kids increase independence, and one of the signs of increased independence is the ability to advocate for yourself and others. So they've been doing that throughout the year. I meet with them on a regular basis, where they can compliment me on the fine job I'm doing and complain about food, because those are the important things to 5th graders. They do a lot of other things too. They organize a lot of social events. But the one that I mentioned in my report was that we're working on some reports for the state. And one of the things we had to do is to reach out to groups to talk about how students feel about the MCAS. And they were very articulate. I was very impressed with the kids who walked. They were able to talk about, I'm nervous, but I don't know why, and these are really refreshing conversations. So,
I happen to, is it Link? Is that your
parent group? Yes.
It's incredible. The meeting I attended, the enrichments, when you talk about enrichments, the opportunities, that is incredible. and the work that's happening there as well too. So thank you for overseeing that as well too, Joe.
The student council ever wants to come in and present something to us?
I'm sorry?
If the student council ever wants to come in and present something here?
I will make
Let
them
them
aware
know.
of that opportunity. Be
And do
careful
that.
what you wish for again.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Your report did mention rocket math too. I have a question about rocket math.
Sure.
Is everybody doing rocket math in elementary, or does everybody have access to do?
No, it's second through fourth grade.
Second and
And
fourth.
some sporadic first graders based on ability. We wanted it to be helpful without it being overwhelming. And by the time they get to fifth grade, it's just boring.
Okay, I was going to ask, is it a cost thing or is it a?
No, it's a teacher
attention
driven,
thing? Yeah.
we tried it 1 year
Yeah.
for fifth grade. It just, they weren't as engaged with the platform.
When they're done with it, they're done with it. They do not want
Yeah.
to see it again. By the time
Okay.
they've completed it, they're done.
It's a great point though. So like, I know Joe's still here with us. So one of the things that he would work with me at Veterini is IXL, right? And that we weren't using it, right? The amount of people that weren't using it, and then why are we continuing to pay for it year after year? So that's one of the things that we'll be asking Joe to do with technology. Like, look at all these programs that we have and that we're paying for, and are we using them? And if we're not using them, then why are we paying for them as well too? So that's one of the, I'm just adding to the list of things that Joe's going to be doing in his interim state that he's going to certainly be working full time at.
When he actually stops working.
When he actually starts working. We're paying him actually to work, I should say. There you go.
Thanks.
For the AP document, AP score.
So the AP scores, sorry.
Yeah.
If I can ask to hold that on for next meeting, I didn't want to lengthen this anymore. I know Sally put that in there, but I want to highlight that. But we'll actually put that on the next school committee agenda when Mike and I are sitting talking about that.
So next up is Aaron.
All right. So you have two reports in your folder. I am going to start with fiscal 25, so we'll keep yours in order. You have a 35-page report. It's pretty weighty. I'm not going to focus on getting into the details right now. I'm going to focus on some big picture items. First and foremost is the question of meaningful reporting. I want to provide the school committee reporting that's meaningful, that doesn't take you 35 pages of digging through things to be able to access information. In the past, I have taken basically this report and consolidated it into each of the major function areas you see. So you'll see school committee, for example, that very first section, EMS school committee, is the 1110 account. So I would roll up all the 1110 accounts in an Excel spreadsheet and provide that as a regular report. If any school committee member wanted to see all the detail, I'd be happy to provide this report. We can go through it. This is thousands of line items. It's hard for me to read through all the line items sometimes, so it's challenging. Additionally, I'm also, if you look right at the middle of your school committee section there, for BMS right at the top, you'll see there you have 3 separate contract services line items within BMS, and across 3 schools, that means there are 9 separate line items for the school committee for contracted services. There's surely some level of cleanup that needs to be done with these accounts numbers. These are active accounts. You'll see that despite the fact there's $350 in contract services that are budgeted, nothing has been spent, but $2.50 has been spent in the account above it, despite there being no budget, and $50 in the account below it, encumbered. It just is, I think we need to do some consolidation of account numbers. I'd like to, start having that conversation. Additionally, as I speak to in some of my budget conversations, we really need a central office cost center, and that's something we're going to work on for next year, developing that as a separate item, but consolidating those 3 line items into a single line item that is then properly assessed in towns. So it serves the same purpose. So there'll be, hopefully by next year, some consolidation of this, but I want to start thinking about some of these things. And maybe, we talked about it a little bit in Budget and Finance Subcommittee the other day, But if the school committee members could take a look at this report and ask yourselves, what's meaningful to you, maybe next month we can come back and sort of revisit it. Is that a fair ask? To kind of determine that. Some other items I think I'd like to highlight in the report. If you go to the very end, so I said big picture, I'm looking at the total budget mostly. As you go through it, you will see that there are a number of relatively small encumbrances in the salary line items. Our system doesn't encumber salaries. I'm going to work on trying to figure out a method to manually encumber salaries because it's hard for me to look at this without knowing where we're projected to be for salaries. Where we come at the end at $8.6 million, the bottom line budget is an okay place to be. When you keep in mind there's about $1.6 million of random encumbrances in there. Those were put in prior, I think, to even Dan Needy starting. So there's a journal entry, which is just a means of booking things in the system, for a whole series of small encumbrances. I have no idea what those related to and what they were for. I'm going to look at trying to strip those out and figure out the proper way to encumber salaries. It's not going to happen quickly. It's going to take some time, but I'd like to be able to report on encumbered salaries. But as we look at that number without encumbered salaries, that number really is about 10.2 million. So I think we're in a pretty good place. We also have not really tapped school choice yet. I think school choice can be a conversation with the school committee later. I think we have a number of items that we know we're going to have to spend money on. And I think we need to look at those items as the year concludes and figure out what we're going to need for school choice. As I inherited this budget, it wasn't clear what any sort of intent of school choice spending was, but it's clear there probably will be some necessary to make the budget work. That's about it for me for now on that. I will speak to things as they develop and go through the process. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
I just need to say thank you. This is probably one of the first budgets that I've looked at, and I've been on this the longest.
Mm-hmm.
That was really easy to digest. Even that your PowerPoint was just incredibly helpful, and I noticed that the difference in electricity between Boylston and Berlin with being two different electric companies.
Yep.
Those kinds of things stood out to me, and I appreciate your calling attention to that. It's really just, thank you.
Okay. So we'll get into the 26 budget report. This consolidates the two budget reports we gave to each of the towns. So Al and I met with, actually we've met twice with Berlin now, once with Boylston. We met with Boylston's FinCom on December 9th, Berlin's FinCom on December 11th, and then Berlin's Capital Committee on the 19th of December. So we shared this pretty thoroughly with them. If I guess it would be helpful for me to kind of walk through this from a high level perspective. So if we kind of walk through it slide by slide, I won't get into a lot of details. The very first slide talks about some of the preliminary information and assumptions I'm making. We don't have any state figures yet. Those aren't going to come until January. It is January, I know that. Late January. The governor's budget usually comes out towards the last week in January. The other reality is that we are still getting the data that's used to calculate the assessments. So there's a lot of sort of massaging the data to figure out all the student counts for foundation budget. And so I know charter students just dropped. I'm going to be working to figure out how to assess those students properly and line up the assessments and figure out the 5-year moving average. Everything I've done in here on a preliminary basis is based on last year's numbers, assessment percentages. Given that we are a 5-year moving average, I don't expect wild swings in that, which is why I was comfortable it may tweak a little bit, change a little bit, but that's, the individual school budgets won't change wildly in the Tohoto and the regional district.
Is there any way that we could put it up like the previous presentations?
I could have, I'm sorry. I
I
didn't.
mean, we have.
Yeah, I didn't, I apologize. I could do it as a presentation.
Is there a way to attach my computer to them?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it was really nice to
Yeah.
have it.
Keep going until we have that. So.
Thanks, Kyle.
One of the things to remember, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with, there's an out-of-district move-in deadline of April 1st. So if we have a student move out before April 1st, that student comes off our books. If they move out after April 1st, they stay on our books for the next year, and vice versa. So if a student were to move in before April 1st, we have to assume them on our budget. If they move in after April 1st, the district they came from pays that cost for the next year. That's simply for students in out-of-district private placements, but those are our most expensive. I literally gave a budget presentation in March, one day in late March at my previous district. Finished the presentation, got in Friday morning, it was Thursday night, Friday morning, to have our district admin assistant let me know that we had an out-of-district student move in that prior day. She wasn't aware they were an out-of-district student in time to let me know. So we had to kind of adjust our budget on the fly. It was a pretty significant amount of money, and we had to sort of reconvene things. So that could always happen at any point up until April 1st. So we need to keep that in mind. This budget is arranged into proper cost centers. We talked a little bit about it before, that we really need to have a district cost center with proper accounting, proper recognition of costs, and cost controls. And there's also no reason for the principals to need to worry about the school committee expenses, right? That's not really their purview when they're looking at budgets. I've made the recommendation to the towns that we start looking at moving the recurring student and staff devices that are in capital into operations if possible. Both towns seem to be amenable to it, but there may be some budget constraints around it because they draw capital money in many cases from free cash, whereas their operating expenses are from their general revenues. So they may have some challenges doing that. So we'll continue those conversations. It doesn't mean I'm pushing to have it happen tomorrow. If it takes a few years and we're able to work them in over time, we'll continue talking to the towns about that. So you'll see a list of major budget drivers. I won't get into all the details on those. Health insurance, I think I've talked about the health insurance increases we've seen. We are going into contract negotiations, so particularly teacher salaries. Looking at some of the increases that have been voted in other districts, it could be a considerable amount. Regular transportation, we are rebidding that. That bid goes out tomorrow, and we're hoping to get bidders on that. We've actually had a couple companies reach out to us, so I'm pretty confident NRT will bid, but I will be getting back in touch with some of those companies that have reached out to me in the past couple of months and letting them know that that bid will be available. Special education transportation, I'm probably going to touch on Janelle on this and Michelle, and try to figure out where this is. I might need to just reach out to Assabet Valley Collaborative. They're renegotiating their contract with Vanpool. Vanpool, when they entered that contract, it seems that there may have been some reporting requirements that weren't clear. And in order to get special education reimbursement, we need some of that reporting. So that's part of that. Other insurances, I'm projecting a 10% increase for those reasons. In other insurances, I have talked to our insurance company, MIA, Massachusetts Intergovernmental Insurance Association. I don't think it will be quite 10%. I'm going to look at what they've kind of pitched us there. But those numbers don't typically come out until after our budget is done. So their formal final numbers won't come out until after our budget is done. So there's always some guesswork. And I guess it's a good opportunity to say, literally every item in a budget is, at this point, is rolling the dice, right? Now we're trying to make the most conservative bets possible on how those dice are going to fall. And that's where we're sitting. We have a number of contracted agency hires. Due to a shortage of candidates, we just aren't getting candidates for positions. You will see that later in this presentation that we have a very high number of people who are agency hires working for us who cost significantly more than the regular employee cost us. Obviously, the agency needs to make money as well on top of everything else that needs to be improved on. So if we zip to the next slide, we get to a high level of where we are as a total budget for fiscal 26. Right now, we're looking at total operating budget of $26,444,485, a net increase of 6.68%. Now, we recognize also that this district doesn't just assess one number; it's broken down by the schools. So if we get to the next slide, we break that down a little bit. Excellent. So like I said, we would have a district-wide cost center. I've broken all the costs out from fiscal 25. We do that 40 to 26 for district-wide cost. District-wide cost is small, and it's mostly salaries and more controllable costs. So that's why that number is a little more reasonable. Things like transportation, health, all of the health insurances sit in the schools. So all of those big increases are sitting in the schools right now. Burl Memorial, a lot of that increase is really those agency hires. Burl Memorial has, I want to say, 6 agency paraprofessionals right now. So it's a large portion of that. There are definitely some increases to some special. We'll get into some of the other increases in a minute. Boylston Elementary. Boylston Elementary has been fortunate to have a couple of move-ups, move-outs in terms of out-of-district tuitions. So that's one of the reasons why their budget is a little bit lower. They've been lucky in that regard. Some of those move-ups, however, have moved to Hondo. That's just the reality as students age. So those out-of-district placements now stay in Hondo. And we will get into some of the other cost items. One item of note is I will be meeting with principals this week just to go through all these numbers again, to sharpen our pencils. One of the things, once we put together that first budget, this is a constant process of sharpening our pencils and trying to figure out where things are. Little things, we'll just roll into the budget, and I'll have a new version of the budget that I'll just hold until there's a point to have a big update. In fact, we did just vote a small increase to the budget in a stipend tonight. So that will change the budget slightly. I'm not going to give a big presentation based on that change. It's not a big change. It's not terribly consequential. But, I will hold small changes and small tweaks for a point where we will have an opportunity to make bigger revisions. A lot of those are likely to come in when state numbers come in January. So we'd be looking maybe to reach out to the towns and have some more conversations, or at least present to them again. Or maybe invite them to a school committee meeting to see an updated version of the way. So that gets us to our total numbers at 6.68%. We blend everything together and move to the next slide. So Burl Memorial, as I said, salaries are a pretty significant factor. Employee health and retiree health, I'm factoring in, I think I've shared 18%. We know that retiree health is going to be about 18%, 17.9% increase this year. That's boiled in. We can't do anything about that. My hope is that employee health comes in a little lower. There are a few factors that make retiree health this year a little more expensive. There has been a change to Medicare, to the cap on, there used to be an $8,000 cap out of pocket. The new cap is now $2,000. So the providers who provide some of the Medicare Advantage plans and things like that through the district have to absorb that cost, and that's factored into the pricing. So, like I said, I use the best number they have at this point. I don't expect employee health to be 18%, but I can't take a guess at when it might be, so that's on the high end. And again, like I said, we're going to continue whittling this down. If I start getting better numbers, we'll put those up. My understanding is that health insurance from MIA comes in around the end of January as well. So we may have a couple big updates in January. Retiree health, homeless transportation. I don't like getting into too much detail about student situations, but there is definitely a current need for that. So we are adding that to the budget, presuming there's the possibility of it will continue. Special education transportation, another item that has gone on to work with Michelle in the special education office. This is her estimate of where things are going to be. Electricity, I don't know why, but electricity was definitively under budget. I've looked back at the past couple of years' usage, and it has definitely exceeded budget by that amount. Tuition and fees, again, that's cost of at least one out-of-district student, as well as any interest and charter costs built in there. So that's combined. We'll go through that, John. There are small variances across other lines. These are the big picture items. These are the items that are really driving those budget changes. And like I said, if not for the agency paraprofessionals, that salary increase would be about 4.1%. It's a little more in line with the other schools. Go to the next slide. This is just a calculation of the operating assessment. We take the budget, we take out the district share, their share of the district budget. This is how we're assessing the district-wide costs to get the total budget. Take out their share of Chapter 70, their share of Chapter 71 to get the total assessed. Next slide. So we get to Boylston. Again, Boylston salaries, they do have a couple of agency paraprofessionals, so if not for that, they'd be at 4.18%. Employee health and retiree health, same thing. Regular transportation, we are looking at 7% across the board, just preliminarily. I actually met with after this was put together and finalized, I met with the asset business administrator, and she indicated that there are some districts that see as much as a 50% increase to the transportation. I'm crossing my fingers, it's not going to be there, but we're really hoping. Due to those out-of-district shifts, special education transportation, special education tuitions have dropped, and you can see how significant that is on their budget. So we talk about their positioning. Some of that is just students graduating through the school and or moving out, things like that. So next slide is the same thing as BMS for the assessment of the total assessed value. So I won't get into all the detail, but again, all the same factors are applied. So getting into Tohoto, what are some of the big factors? As some solid increases there. That's all of these are a result of steps, as well as a projected COLA. So we're going into negotiations. I have a number in there, not something I want to share in public setting, but employee health, same thing. Substitutes. Tohoto is really using a lot more substitutes than proportionally the other districts. This is, I think I'm surprised to see that the other schools didn't have more in substitutes. I'm on a listserv with other school business administrators as well as human resources professionals throughout the state. And every single one of them has seen increases to their substitute numbers. We saw them go up in COVID, and they're actually continuing to trend upward in many cases. So a lot of people are talking about it's just a paradigm shift. People are changing their impression. We spent 3 years telling everybody if you have a fever, stay home. And now we're surprised they're staying home with a fever. I mean, that's just the reality sometimes. We see it in students, right? We're wondering why students are out more. We're seeing it in staff. A lot more people who are taking more FMLs across the board. So it's long-term and short-term subs. So I have to factor for it. I look at the past 2 years of sub-use and the trend in that direction. I try to look and see something that's 1 year. I look back another year and check to see what the trend line is doing and try to examine that. The special education costs, the transportation, the tuitions. If you look on private tuitions, we're looking at 2 move-ups and 1 move-in and 1 replacement. That's 4 additional students in that category. That's a significant change. So some challenges there. We go to the next slide. The next 2 slides, I won't belabor it. This is a longer version of the individual school assessment process. But then the second slide of this gets into how it's assessed in each town. Berlin is highlighted blue, Boylston is highlighted yellow, just to make it a little more visual so you can see who's paying for what. You'll see in places I used MLC, that's short for minimum local contribution. The state mandates that based on your town's wealth in relation to property values and income, that you contribute a minimum amount. Very few schools contribute only the minimum amount. Very few communities contribute only the minimum amount. Most communities are at least 20% over. 20 to 50% is probably the average. Some school districts are at 200% of their local. That local contribution is a piece of what's called minimum net school spending. So I'm sorry, I'm mixing the two, but they're all factors in what's called the minimum net school spending. We can get into that another time, but most schools spend significantly more. Districts, towns spend significantly more than the minimum of their schools. It's just a reality. We go to the next slide. So we get into the total assessments to the towns for operations. MLC again, minimum local contribution. So we get into Berlin, the Honto above. So the total operating assessment for Berlin is $9.5 million, $537,769 based on this budget. Next slide. Same calculation, just swapping out the US and for the Boylston share for a total operating assessment of $13,393,37. So on top of all of this, we have the Honto debt. So we have an obligation to 2 bonds. One is a refinance done in 2021, and one is a 2018 bond. You can see the total, the Berlin share, the Boylston share. I did just share our debt schedules with the towns. So we've had a few questions about the debt, a few sort of questions and concerns. Interestingly, they had never seen the debt schedules, so it was strange that they'd never seen them before. That would have been one of the first things that would have given them. But they now have them. They're aware of sort of the debt schedules and keeping on top of that. So we can go to the next slide. So, Berlin Elementary capital requests, these are the requests that we've put in. These are the requests that we met with the town of Berlin over. We've submitted all of the capital paperwork. The only item that sort of was added after the fact was we heard that there was some interest in potentially adding solar to the new roof if they put the new roof on. So we got a quote for an estimate for solar. So right now we're looking at $1,295,000. You know, my recommendation might be to try to do the solar in year 2 if they're, you know, if they have the appetite to do the roof, but not other things. I will state that the probably number one priority is the elevator controls. We may not pass state inspection if we don't replace those. So that's a pretty significant issue. We scroll down to the next slide. We have Boylston capital. You know, definitely that MSB roof project is blooming. Boylston has, I think, you know, slated some smaller things, but some things that definitely need to be done. One of cameras is going to be important for security. I know Rich gave a really good presentation on safety. They're a big component in our school safety. Student staff device replacement, that is in all 3. That's the item we're looking to potentially move to operating. Again, maybe over time, maybe in pieces, but it's something that ask will be here every single year. At that point, we really kind of want to think about moving into operating, particularly given the device cost. The individual device cost is low enough, it doesn't meet capital thresholds, so it's not really something you can. Scrolling down to the next slide, we have Nando, and I want to say Lisa's priority is that furniture, or at least to start looking at it. I have sat in that furniture. Lisa and I had a meeting, and I had the opportunity to sit in that middle school furniture right in the middle. That is elementary furniture. That is there's no two ways about it. That's not middle school furniture. You know, most of the other items, auditorium capital lighting and sound was on last year. This is a rolling up of basically 2 years. They put forward a 3-year plan last year. Year 1 was not approved, so we kind of rolled it in. I think we're open to conversations. We shared with both towns. We are very open to conversations on all of these items. We understand that you know, Berlin with a $1.4 million ask and Tohoto having a $1.4 million ask may not be tenable. So we're happy to prioritize. We're happy to make some modifications and talk about, you know, what's doable. Scrolling down to the next slide. I think we have. You know, like I said, this is a constant project of refinement. I will meet with the principals. I don't expect, unless, you know, my meetings with the principals uncover something extraordinary that was missed, I think our next big update is likely to be right at the end of February. Once we get our numbers, I would suggest we think about having a shared conversation with towns, or maybe sort of revisiting the towns at that point and having those conversations. Otherwise, you know, relative to that December 9th, 11th, and 19th meeting, not a lot has changed. There's no real new information that would sort of spawn us to jump ahead again. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, dreams, wishes, money tree?
Anybody?
I know we did the state funding for VES. Is that, do we know if that's going to?
State funding for what?
For VES.
MSBA, she's talking
Sorry.
about.
Oh, yes.
I don't do well with letters. So.
Yeah. That's fine.
So I didn't know if that's a possibility down the road to try to do it for VMS or.
Yeah, so we will, we will probably put in what's called an SOI with MSBA for the roof. You know, it's interesting. I looked at a roof that was about the same value as another district, and we started looking at what it would cost to do it through MSBA, and it literally was twice the cost to do it through MSBA. We bid it out to see what would happen. We got a tremendous bid in, and we decided just not to go through MSBA. It would have been $700,000 to go through MSBA. We did it for about $335,000. There are a lot of additional costs involved. And again, for really big projects, it's fantastic when you get these smaller projects. A small project to them is anything, you know, really under $1 million. And their low end threshold is $250,000, so when you're just barely crossing that threshold, you know. So we were very lucky. We got a vendor who was willing to do a roof in November or December, and was an employee-owned business, so that they did not have to meet prevailing wage. So prevailing wage is another big factor in how you bid projects. So prevailing wages can be pretty significant. The oversight from MSBA is pretty onerous. But again, I'm happy to, you know, we'll put the SOI out, we'll see what comes, and we'll go through the process just like we do.
And to be honest with you, I don't think you can run two at the same time.
I don't think so.
So
I think we asked
Yeah, you
last
can't
year.
run. It's only because they want to make sure the MSBA, right? It's good that we're in that networking with them, that we can afford our end of the roofing project that's going on in Boylston, right? Which we know we can, but they want to make sure because they're putting that percentage in and we're putting our percentage in. So after that, then certainly we could go to that next step and certainly look at that as well too.
Yeah, the Boylston one was significantly, I think that one was over $1 million.
Yeah.
And you have to start with an SOI. It's not a difficult process, so I'm happy to work with Ellen and we'll put that in and make sure that is processed and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. And again, I don't think we can do it, Aaron, and I'll have to check on that until after summer of next.
We can ask the person.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. We were on the phone with her today.
Yeah.
She calls us on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I want to say like Worcester had like 3 or 4 projects when we were in the meeting.
Yeah, it'll be a good conversation for us to have.
So be it.
Good. Anybody?
I'd love to see solar because of the electricity going on in Berlin. Like that's definitely looking forward to deferring it.
Yeah, there was also some talk from them about potentially putting solar on a pole out in the field somewhere. I don't know. Your average roof is going to last ideally 25 years, give or take. So your sweet spot for putting solar is probably in the first 5 years, right? So you can get payback on it. So you don't need to put it in as you put the roof on, but you really want to try to, if you're going to do it, you really want to do it in the first few years. The last thing you want to do is put it in with 10 years left on the roof, and you're less than the payback period of the solar, and then if you replace the roof, you now have to rip the solar out, replace the roof, and then put the solar back on. The cost is insane. So you really want to make sure you time if you're going to use solar.
When we met with Berlin, there was quite a little bit of a conversation about where they would put it, right? Pole in the fields and roof, right? So there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of communities around us that are using different ways, right? So we did one in Worcester where we put it in the, I apologize for those who've heard the story. We put it in the parking lot, right? So it was fantastic, right? You're shaking your head, it was great. It was great for carports for everybody. Everyone enjoyed it until the first snowstorm came. And our plowing costs went up tremendously because no longer could they just plow up and down the big parking lot. They had to plow around all these structures that were in the parking lot. So I think we ended up losing money when we talked about that as well too. And then the snow was falling off it. So we really got to look at some communities around and how they're using the solar panels and the location they're going to put them as well too. So it's definitely a big conversation when you're talking about where you're going to put those permanent structures, or not semi-permanent structures.
Something to consider when you expand the Tohoto parking. So, anybody else have any other questions on budget?
No, just a reminder that this is a level budget, so this means we get not one new thing this year. So just kind of tough to see those increases and.
Our fingers are crossed that we're going to get some things fall our way. Maybe we'll be able to improve things. We have lists going. We noted there. once, I look at this and once I see, at your point, presented, a 12 to 15% budget, right?
No.
So, give them this number, let them digest it. If we can bring it down and we can move some things within their number that works, and maybe we push on a few things, we'll do our best.
Again, I think Aaron stressed it, that this is hopefully the highest end of this budget, right? So we're up here, and so instead of bringing in a lower budget and then asking as it increases as it goes along, but there are some factors in there, like Aaron said, that we're still not sure of, right? We're in the part of negotiations, there's insurance, and there is some work that we're going to work on our end that we can to help decrease some of those high costs as well. Too.
Hey, Alan, I know there was some talk with Joe earlier about looking at all the contracts for different services and like during the Rocky Math conversation, right?
Yes, yes.
So you're going through all, I would assume you're going through all contracts that we have, every single individual contract we have with, whether it's internal, external.
Yes.
For this budget, right?
Yes.
Make sure everything lines up.
We are. It's
Things that
certainly
come
something.
due.
Yep. We're going to look at every contract that we have, whether it be independent, whether it be contracts that are for different companies. One of the things that Janelle and I and Aaron are talking about also these outside agencies that we're having, right? We as principals, we have it as part of a conversation we had, hiring process, right? And that we need to do better at advertising our jobs. I'll give you an example. When I put out the job for an interim director of finance, the amount of individual private companies that reached out to me and said, we can help you with this, right? We can take this. So there are a lot of agencies out there that want to take that work. And that's what's happening, I believe, with some of our paras as well, too. But we have to come up with a way that we can keep reposting those jobs and making sure they're current and making sure that we're out there being as competitive as we can. And that's a conversation we all have. So please know that we're looking at every single piece of that, that I'll be getting ready as we're looking at every nook and cranny in this budget to see where we can save. Because to Megan's point, this is level. Right? This is level right now. Never mind all those other things we talked about that Rich is talking about, school resource officers. I'll be presenting that all to you guys as the budget unfolds, so you guys get a chance to look at that, because ultimately that's your role, right? Policy, budget, and the hiring and firing of the superintendent. So those are important things. So you'll be getting all that information.
All right. Any other questions for Aaron? Thanks,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Thank you all so much.
Your eyes are going crazy with the thousands of lines of stuff. I get it. Subcommittee updates. Jess, do you have anything for the student success and tech?
No, we're kind of in a holding pattern until the new tech person comes in, and then I expect some meetings to be scheduled.
All right. Megan, anything we haven't heard yet from budget facilities?
Not really, just one thing we had talked about is potentially moving, I think we have our final vote on the budget scheduled for February 25th.
I think that's the budget hearing.
Oh, yeah, that's the hearing. So do we have the vote scheduled for that day?
I believe we do.
Scheduled for that as well.
I believe
Yeah.
we do.
So, Aaron, we had talked about maybe moving it a week, I think, just due to
Schedule that.
a week or 2 weeks. So that's something you guys can talk about offline.
You gotta talk to Berlin about that.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
do that
something we'd
again.
have to, I just
Yeah.
wanted to put it out there that it was discussed and,
So what's the date right now? Sorry.
February 25th. So it's the Tuesday after April vacation, or February
Immediately
break.
after February.
Yeah.
It's immediately after, so
So can
for
I,
those that are away during that,
in terms of preparation, so who
it's
do we?
tough for prep.
We do that specifically because Berlin has asked us to do that. So whether, people, that's a school day, it's not during vacation, right?
No,
I mean, talk to them.
Okay.
But that didn't go so well.
Okay.
yeah, and the other thing we had talked about too is just, so many moving parts. This is a level budget, the transportation, the retiree benefits, salaries. The longer we can wait, the better. Obviously not waiting till the end of March, but to push it a week, I think it would give Aaron, it was something that we brought up, so.
So who do I talk to about that? Kristen? Is that who I go through for that?
That's the agreement. Call Kristen.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
That's the agreement.
Yeah, I don't think the school committee, one way or the other,
Sure.
has a,
I'd rather vote on a more concrete number than.
Sure.
that's what I said. I said I'd rather have it more accurate so we can get more things in there.
We agree.
Yep.
We agree.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call Kristen tomorrow.
Yeah, so that was it.
Cool.
No updates from the policy committee. We'll get to a couple of the votes. But Lori, do you have an update, or Megan, do you have an update
Yeah,
for
so
superintendent?
we met this week, and 3 members, Jess, Megan, and I, and we unanimously chose to recommend MASC to guide our superintendent search, and we did this due to a comparison of cost, services offered, as well as both Jess and Megan had experiences with NESDEC and MASC when we were trying to find an interim very quickly, and the difference in how willing they were to help kind of paved the way as well.
Okay. So we have a vote coming up on that later.
Goes along what you asked me earlier. We have a contract with MASC as well too, right? So we have them, we pay them every year, right, for services rendered so we should be using our contracted vendors before we're going outside. So looking at all that stuff.
I think we pay for NESDEC as well.
No, I think at one point we were going to pay for NESDEC, but I don't know that we did. We were going to use NESDEC for the finance director search, right? Well, that was before your time. I don't think we did we? That
Sounds familiar, I think it was considered.
Carol looked at, yeah, I don't think we actually pulled the trigger with that.
We're a member town on their website, or something, so perhaps Aaron could take a peek that
Sure.
we're not giving them money too. But
Yeah, I would look into that.
So on their website we're listed. So I don't-
Yeah,
I
or
know.
maybe we're just a town that they service. I don't know. I know Carol had gotten a quote from them for,
So we get some stuff from them, and I know that we looked for some other stuff, but there was a cost that they were going to charge us for additional things we wanted.
yes, everything was at a cost.
It was
yeah.
a sort of like an a la carte type of thing.
A la
So,
carte, yes, yeah.
so, but we'll definitely, I've added that to my list.
Okay, well, that's the end of our agenda up through business items. Unless anybody has any other questions for any subcommittees? No? Okay. So then may I have a motion for the approval of the superintendent search agency to be MASC as the subcommittee has suggested?
So moved.
Megan? Jess, second? Would anyone like to discuss that?
Just to support it, like the
Yeah.
a la carte, that's exactly what NESDEC was. If you look at the beautiful chart that Lori made for last meeting, so NESDEC is cheaper, up front, but then we definitely want to have community outreach or focus groups, whatever we'd like to call them, but NESDEC charges 400 something per group, and so that easily equals the 2,000 difference up front when you look at it in the end. And again, it's just, Tracy is.
I'm glad you recognized. Tracy was a big piece of this, Tracy noted, and just how helpful and considerate she has been to this district and how professional she gets back to right away, like both Jess and Megan and myself.
All right. Any other comments? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you very much. We already approved the Sweet and Savory Club. So the next item on the agenda, so we can discuss it, could I have a motion for the approval of the student competency determination as recommended in the draft?
So
Second.
Lori and Megan. All right, so Al, this is going to need some discussion
Yeah.
and description.
So I'm sorry, I know we've been in here a couple hours. This is real important, right? That we talk to you about this and get a vote from you. Many districts are pushing this back a little bit, but we don't want it, right? We want to make sure we got an answer from you. They've pushed this to the local level from us. So we need a vote from you guys today so we know what direction we're going to go in. So I'm going to turn it over to Sally, our curriculum director, who's going to give you a little bit of a rundown what it looks like. Please know that she's just representing the work that Rich, myself, Renee, Lisa, our staff here have really looked at and feel like this is the best route that we're recommending to you guys right now for MCAS for this year. Sally?
Right, so although the MCAS was voted out as a graduation requirement, it still continues to exist. Jesse will still be using it for accountability ratings, and there's still some scholarships associated with it. The state has asked the districts to come up with what we are proposing for the graduation requirements moving forward. So we have come up with 3 proposals. which these columns are A, B, and C, and we're recommending A. For proposal A, we are recommending that we continue to use the MCAS this year as a graduation requirement until other time when we can see what other guidance that's come out from DESI and also get a better idea of what other districts are doing. And at that time, we can make another decision. So that's the proposal that we are recommending. The option B would be to not have it be a graduation requirement. However, for those students who scored a partially meeting, those students would be still progress monitored through their coursework and midterm and final exams, just as we do with the EPP process. And for those students who are not meeting, we would ask that they continue to take it with support in between tests and until they are able to pass it. And the third option would be to just remove it as a graduation requirement and rely on coursework and midterm and final.
So we're recommending A. Right now, we need some work to do and some work to look at this in terms of that. Please understand that the MCAS is still taken, right? It's all making sure that every student in our schools are taking the MCAS. There's a lot of money that falls the students taking the MCAS as well too, so that is not going away. It's whether we're using it for a graduation requirement. The big question is if you don't use that as a graduation requirement, what are you using? And what does that look like? So when you get a diploma from Tohoto, does it look like the same when you're graduating from Leicester? And that's what they're looking at. So they really push it down to the local level, right? So I happen to be, and I think Jess, you were there with me at the conference where we're all sort of caught off guard, right? MASS and MASC. And so now how are we going to handle this? Because what does it look like when you're graduating from these schools? And is it all level in terms of what a diploma looks like? And the one thing that we're asking you at this point is let us do some work during the summer. Let us take a really deep dive. Let us talk to my colleagues right now, superintendents who are in this network. I know Lisa and her team are on network, so we're all trying to figure this out together. We feel the best thing to do at this point is leave it as our graduation requirement right now for this year, and let us come back to you after we do the summer work, which keeps adding on to my list, and we'll come back to you during the summer or hopefully the first meeting that you have and with the recommendation for next year at MCAS. Did I do a good job, Sally and Lisa, in terms of summarizing that? Renee, Rich, anything else you guys want to add to that?
So this vote is only for graduation 2025. It does not extend beyond that until you come up with a new plan or have some more time to at least think about it and recommend something else.
I think it was November 5th was the election. Literally, this has come down our way, and everyone's sort of scrambling, trying to figure out the best way. And we want to make sure we're being competitive as well, too, right? For our students that when they have a diploma from Tohoto, it holds the same weight that anywhere it graduates from. So right now, we're just recommending keeping the MCAS for now, yes.
And so this applies to MCAS graduation requirement applies to the 10th grade MCAS test. So taken 2 years ago by these graduating seniors.
That's right.
So it's not like they're making a decision to take it or not take it. The only issue maybe is whether you have people who are, or students who are below the threshold that you mentioned, Sally, and you're still working with them.
That's right.
Is that a large population?
That is such a minimum, and I want to be very careful because I don't want to pinpoint any particular person or student or students, but it's so minimum that we believe we're doing everything we can that we're not concerned about that at all. I mean, students graduating.
So regardless of how big that group is, you're confident that you'll be able to work with them between now and June?
We are.
Graduate?
We are. And I say we are, I'm referring to Rich, Renee, Lisa, and the staff at Thompson. Okay.
And the retests were in the fall already, but we don't get the results for that.
Very soon.
Hypothetical person.
In February.
Oh, okay, so, because I saw there was some tests immediately after the election that still took place, because it wasn't in place yet.
Correct, yes. So there, so which test were you, because I know.
I'm sorry.
Right, I know the test that I'm looking for the results. I will get those results in February.
Oh, okay.
We just need to do a little bit more homework. We need to do a little bit more research on this before we come up with a final proposal for you guys. We feel that this is the best, but this also helps us with our path. Some of my colleagues, superintendents, are waiting a little while longer until that. We don't feel like we need to wait. We need to get this ready so it impacts our students as well and our teachers.
Have there been any other districts that have voted thus far to
Yes.
continue them?
Yes, Please don't ask me which ones, but yes.
But they exist.
Yes, they do exist. Many of them are sort of, I don't mean to say the word pushing, but moving our school committees along so we can get some decisions, so it'll be helpful for our administration. It's a lot we're working with MCAS, and for them to push it to the local level is a big lift for us to do this work.
I'm curious, like, I don't, like voters said this should not be a requirement anymore. And if there is a possible student that might be penalized, and we don't find out until February, I guess, what is the push to approve it within the next month before we know those results? Because I don't want to take a vote and then there is a child that does not receive their diploma because we gambled that they passed.
We're not concerned about that. We're not concerned about that. With the work that we've put in place, the support that the school has been giving for, and I want to be really careful that we're not narrowing down, right?
No,
So
I guess
we're just not concerned.
If these results come back in February and the student hasn't achieved whatever mark they need to achieve, is that it? Or is there more? I think that's maybe what Jess is looking for.
Yeah.
Is there additional
Because,
opportunities?
the reason why MCAS no one likes them because not everyone tests well. So I have no doubt that the team has put an immense time and effort into supporting our students. But say it was they didn't feel well that day and they vomited, they didn't do well. So I'm questioning, do we know at a specific date in February when MCAS results come back? I guess what benefit do we have to voting it now versus in February?
Right.
When we know that doesn't impact anyone.
So we don't know the exact date. They say February because it's easier for them to provide a more vague answer because depending on whatever.
And the next round of MCAS is in March. So
Right.
we just don't want, and all we're saying is, first of all, this is the recommendation we're making, right? For all of us knowing all the specific data that we know as administration and the superintendent, knowing those minute details that we can't necessarily share at this point because we don't want to. But our recommendation, knowing all that knowledge that we have, is we're recommending at this point that we use the MCAS as a graduation requirement. We are not concerned, and I speak for the administration when we're saying that.
I just worry this conversation is getting very specific and might harm somebody.
What's that?
I'm worried this conversation is
I agree.
really specific,
I
so
completely
think
agree.
we should
I'm borderlining uncomfortable right now.
I understand.
I guess I don't
totally
understand why
understand
we have
what
to
you're
vote
saying.
today
Yeah.
versus voting before
Right,
the
I
MCAS
agree.
in March and hypothetically at the end of February. I guess. I don't understand the benefit of doing it now versus next month.
Lisa and Sally, you're definitely recommending A?
I'm recommending A.
Okay.
Can I push it, Rich and Renee, as well too?
All right. Any other comments, questions?
I guess I would just ask what the administration thinks, if we were to push it back, as Jeff is saying, what would be the danger? If you could, is there anything specific that you are worried if you were to push it?
Like as a district?
As a district?
As
not
a district, I can't see that there's any particular danger, other than that I think clarity with families and students is kind.
Right.
I think that's important to understand that the intention of what is happening, the sooner you provide information about the intention of what would happen, students can be more prepared for that, as opposed to, there's such a misconception out there after the vote that people were like, MCAS is gone. And that was, that was it wasn't, a district fault, it was how it was presented. And so I think that there's misinformation. I've been trying to give out information as best as I can, but being clear is kind, I think. And
and the kids that are prepping to take the test, this is this opportunity for them to take it seriously, to know that they need to.
Correct.
So the majority of the district, it's important that they start getting ready to take it serious.
But if I can clarify, people taking it in March, that would be for next year's 2026 graduation requirement. Yes, it's not like as a senior that's hypothetically graduating in 2025 could take the March and still graduate. Wasn't December their last opportunity to pass that?
Not necessarily. You could very well have somebody move in district from out of state. There's a lot of different opportunities. But if somebody did not take, say the math, there's still an additional science time for makeup. I think the timing of this and the 10th graders, there's the state, the voters spoke, but then there was no real plan in place. And that's the unfortunate piece, right? Because the testing then takes place in March, right? So, and basically we were all on the call for the state where they basically said, we don't know what's next. Here you go. Left us all very uncomfortable. We're trying to get a feel of what other districts are doing, other communities are doing. Everybody's basically at a standstill right now. So those 10th graders, even though the vote that maybe would make tonight or next month or what have you, whatever you decide to do, may not impact their graduation. It very well could impact the way they take that test, right? Because that accountability not only for our students, but for our teachers, where are we? We don't have a plan, right? Because the state hasn't provided us a new framework yet, right? We still have the standards. We know this test assesses the standards that we're required to teach to. That's what we know. So, we just need to make sure, I think in some of our conversations, that our students are taking this seriously, because we need to also support our teachers as well, right? And that's where we're feeling like the preparation in letting, because our teachers every day, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? When are our and in fielding emails, Mr. Quir's fielding a lot of email from parents as well. And again, this then lies on your shoulders, which I feel was unfair to the state put us in this position. So I think we're just opening this conversation sooner rather than later, knowing that these tests come up in March, for 10th grade.
It's the accountability that still goes along with this FCAS, right? And we need to make sure we're really clear about that, the importance of this test, right? And that it's tied to a lot of scholarships that go along with that. So the importance of taking these tests seriously is extremely important. I've heard loud and clear from you as a school committee, not regarding this topic, that you don't want to be at the last minute, me coming to you in February, still not having the results back yet, and say, March is around the corner, what are we doing? And you not having enough information. This is a tough spot they've put us in as a district, and they particularly put it at the local level. We've been on webinar after webinar after webinar, and everybody's sort of trying to figure this out. But our recommendation is, after really looking into our students, our staff, and what we think is best for the students at Tohoto High School is option A. And that's why we're really clear and gave out 3 options, A, B, and C. You guys can certainly choose. We're just giving you recognition, but we need some direction to leave tonight and be prepared as we move forward to minister this in March.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept as recommended, which is option A.
That's right.
Should we take a vote?
We also have an option to table the topic too.
Everyone want to vote? Is anyone in favor?
In favor of what?
The motion on the table, which is to accept as recommended, option A.
I'm in favor. Aye.
And against?
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes. So it will be option A for now. We'll be back talking about this end of the summer, very beginning of the year.
This is work we're doing now, right? We're already starting to work. I thank you. I know this was a tough decision for you guys to make and a tough call for school committees to make, but thank you. This is the work we need to start moving on.
So then there needs to be huge communication around, because I was the first year they piloted MCAS and we did not take it seriously. I will tell you that 110%. And so, I think the huge communication about, this is still tied to funding and scholarships, and so this is something.
John Abbs and Abigail Adams Scholarship. There's a lot of money state schools going to that, right?
But I'm saying the first year we took it and piloted it,
Yep.
no one said there were scholarships to UMass full ride.
So that's why we're for tuition, not room and board. That's where they really get you in that, right? But that's why we want to continue the level of importance that we're doing right now, right? The high school saying this is important. That's the message they've been giving since MCAS has been started here. And so we don't want anyone to waver. To Lisa's point, clear as time. We want to continue putting that pedal to the metal on this.
All right, we have a couple more items
Sure,
here.
sorry, thanks.
Al, we've got two policies here. Can you, before we make our motions on these, will you tell us what you're looking for?
Sure. So I think the first one, hold on, attendance. Who wants to, you want to talk a little bit about attendance and this, what we're looking for?
Sure. What the administration team recommends for the attendance policy is keeping the current school committee policy of the JE as it reads for the remainder of this school year, 24 to 25. This is, again, in order to give us more sufficient time to review the most recent state recommendations. There's been a lot of communication back and forth, I know, through the school committee, through the administrative teams at all three schools. And I think the attendance policy as it is now, as it is stated, is something that we feel we can continue to uphold for this school year, and then taking really a deeper dive into the current recommendations, and if that guidance might change now that COVID is that, a couple years past, as we were talking, substitute students and staff, those type of things, all of that guidance may change as we know with the state.
We know that making a change in January would be very difficult for even at the high school and at the elementary levels. We're really going to be looking at the work, and we're going to get closer to the way the policy is written statewide, right? There's only 3 reasons for an excused absence, right? We sort of muddied the water by having reasons for these absences. It's death, hospitalization, religious holidays. That's it, right? Everything else that we sort of created goes off the policy, goes off the state recommendation. Those are the only reasons that we can excuse an absence. And so this year, we're going to keep everything the way it is. We're recommending to school committee, and that you're going to hear from us in the summer or early fall, that will be the policy we're looking at, getting as close to MASC's policy, where those are the only reasons for an excused absence.
Can you explain the difference between an excused absence and a reason for an absence?
Yeah, so it's a little different at Tohoto, right, the way we do it here. So sometimes we have reasons why a child's absent, went to the doctors, have a doctor's note, they're out sick, parent gives, and so we sort of let that go as a reason for why that child's absent. Remember, we have to give letters after 4 absences, right? The first round of letters. Then we have to give one at 7 and then one at 14, right? There are letters that are mandated for us to give this, keeping track of attendance. By the way, principals jump in anytime because it's been a long time since I've been a principal, right? Those are the 3 things that we're giving in terms of that, right? Those are the only reasons if they're...
Giving to who? You have to report this to the state.
You got to give a report to the state.
It's clear.
Yep. When I'm reporting to the state...
You're not giving it out to us.
It is the only... Well, to parents, I say as well, too.
Yeah, it's the state that wants these.
And those are the only absences that we can excuse when we're reporting that to the state. That is it. Doctor's notes, dentist notes, parents' reason. Those are good reasons. We appreciate that. Parents are sick. We want their kids to stay home. We want all that to take place. When we're putting it to the state, that holds no water. And I'm sorry to be callous about that, but it doesn't. Those are the only 3 reasons that are excused. Other than that, we have to report it to the state as an absence if it's not one of those 3 reasons, which generates us to give letters out to families and report to school committee as well too about what our absences look like. Attendance is a big issue, right? We also get sort of dinged on that with MCAS as well too, right? The accountability piece that we know that Cindy's working really hard on that as well too. So those are the only 3 reasons that the state expects from us, and we really need to get back to that.
One more thing, I know we're keeping it. Could you please explain the doctor's appointments, because there's a lot of misinformation on that, about that, where people are running with what's not accurate?
Yeah. So yes, sorry about that. So a doctor's note is a reason for an absence, right? You have a reasons why you're not there. We want you to stay home if you're sick, right? We understand that. The issue, and I think got a little misconstrued, was what we're doing is getting notes, and again, high school jump in, right? If a child is going home, right, or going to a doctor's appointment, going to a dentist's appointment, we understand that. Go to your dentist appointment. We're hoping that you come back to school as well, too. Remember, it's count for an absence. Again, been a little while since I did this. If you're 4 hours, not 4 hours, 3.5? 3 hours. If you're in school for 3 hours,
Oh, no, or you
It's
have to
four,
answer.
yeah.
Oh, 4 hours. I
4
thought you
hours.
meant absent.
Sorry about that,
3 hours,
4.
okay.
If you're in school for 4 hours, you're considered present, right? If you're out for more than that 4 hours, it's an absence, it counts for an absence. It's really simple that way. So what we're really trying to say is, if you have a dentist appointment or you have a doctor, be creative so we can bring your kids back to school. If you go to the doctors and the doctor says you got strep throat or something like that, stay home. Absolutely. We don't want you to come back to school, right? But if you go into a doctor's appointment, bring your child back. Because if it's more than 4 hours that you're absent, we have to mark that as an absence, which we have to report to the state, which generates the letters to you guys, which then I have to report to school committee. So we're just trying to say, be mindful of that. Go to your dentist appointment, go to your doctor's appointment. We understand they're hard to come by, but come back. Particularly at the high school, because if you're missing calculus BC, at that one period of time, not that you're not missing a lot at the elementary level too, but that specific subject during that time, that's a lot for a child to miss. So we don't want you to be out for that period of time. That's where the whole conversation sort of went. That's why the doctor's notes and the dentist notes and all that stuff. That's how it got sort of confusing. We're asking that you keep everything the way it is. We understand the parent reasons for being absent, the parent excuses this year. It's January. We want to leave it the way it is, but know that the recommendation for next year is stick really close to the policy. 3 reasons for excused absence. That's it. Black and white.
And I think it's also important to understand that our policies have to align with Massachusetts general law, and it currently doesn't. Like it doesn't, Matt. Our policy is much too broad.
We're not even close to Lisa. We've moved so far over
Right.
away from
Well, it was written during the COVID years.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
right,
why.
so we were just trying to, I think the intent was to
We weren't even
realign
here.
it, but understandable that.
Can you clarify for me though? So my daughter wakes up, she's not feeling good, she's got a fever. Okay, I keep her home from school. All right, 24 hours. It has to be fever free. 24 hours to come back, so she's not going to school tomorrow.
Yep.
But tomorrow she wakes up, fever's gone. It was just like a 1 day thing, whatever it might be. I know the school nurse isn't here, but I don't need a doctor's note to return after
No.
just a fever,
No.
do I?
No.
Because we got a lot of questions about that too. You don't need to go pay whatever your copay is to go to a doctor for a fever.
And the doctor's note gives us a reason why a child was absent. Thank you for having that, right? We appreciate that, but we don't need you to go to your doctor's for that. But again, it's still not excusing the absence. Religious, hospitalization, death. That's the only one.
Doctor's note plays to like Saturday school, right? Is that where it comes in?
So this is where I think some of those questions may have come forth to the school committee members. We have some students that, for example, they have used, because we have these parent excusals, these additional 3 parent excusals for such as illness. So you don't have to go to the doctor. But many of our students have already used their 3 parent excusals and now they're sick again, right? So now it's like, okay, it can happen, but it seems like it's the same handful of students, right? Sometimes. And that's where we say you need to have those, for medical illness, that they're really not getting Saturday school. What's happening is they're taking vacation days,
Those are their
and those
excusals.
it's a week and a half, 2 weeks of missed school. And I completely appreciate that it's much cheaper to travel, right? Like I totally get it. However, it's an unexcused absence, so you have to make up that time. In high school, if you don't make up that time, you lose credits because you're not there.
You're not there.
You're not there. You have missing assignments. You have missing work. That's where that piece
right.
comes in.
And the Saturday school it's not punitive.
No.
It's an opportunity. It's a olive branch to say, look, you've missed too much school. You've been out too much, and you can get a lot of your work done. You have the resources here. We have people in place. You can do your work in a structured environment to get that done, to make up that work.
In answer to Mike's question, no, we don't need you to get a doctor's note for when your child's home with a fever and stuff. Do we want you to send a note in? Yes, my child was out because they weren't feeling good, right? So that helps us, right? So if we're not getting notes from little Mike, right, and he's out, he's absent, that's causing us on our end to say, we got to reach out to the parents. Our adjustment counsel's got to reach out to our parents. We got to have conversations like, why is this child out? Is there something going on at home? Is there something that we should know about? But if Mike's mom has sent a note in saying, he's had a fever, that's why I kept him home, we don't need that from the doctor, right? Appreciate doesn't excuse the absent, at least we have a reason for that absence. Is that clear?
I was
So we're
curious.
keeping it the same, we're not changing it, so you don't actually need a vote.
We're asking to keep it that's a good point. We're asking to keep
No,
it
I was
just
just
the
gonna say, we
way,
don't
the
need
way
to
it
vote
is.
now.
It's January, right? Let us work
Right.
this out and get it in place. for
Because
next
then people will it'll cause a big flurry of,
Sure.
because not everybody's been.
That's right.
Not everybody
the
has
bus
really been
changes,
abiding
but
by
this
what
part-
these excusals that we're working with, right? So I feel like to make this change right now, it'll really
Be difficult.
So, I was just reading about the Mass General Law, and it said, the school committee has to appoint one or more supervisors of attendance. Is there someone that
An attendance officer, is that what you're asking?
well, the law said supervisors of attendance.
Yeah, so attendance officer. That's a
so-
great question. Do we have an attendance officer?
boy, wouldn't that be fun, Mr. Cameron?
No, I mean.
No, I mean,
Well,
they
who's to say we're not in
essentially, I mean, the
compliance?
assistant principals are the attendance of, but the school committee doesn't have an attendant. Like, then Rich and Renee essentially act as.
But the elementary school, they have,
Yeah.
this is the principal.
Right.
Attendance police
Yeah.
or something at the
I
school
mean,
committee
we
meeting?
have the system, and
We've had
I
that
don't know,
police before.
EMS uses it, we have, what is it called?
We do.
Dismissal manager.
There's someone who sends out the letters though, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Technology
principals do.
department.
We said
All of
they
those,
said-
all those
Will
practices
report
are
to the
in place.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just didn't appoint people.
Yeah, I'm just,
So,
I
you know
know
what I
that.
think we need to do, because clearly we're out of compliance with the law. So, and clearly we're not gonna make a change tonight at 7:46 PM, and we've already been here almost 3 hours. So maybe we go back, and Al needs to work with the principals on making sure we're consistent amongst the 3 schools and with the law. And then I think it would be beneficial personally to vote in May, so that we're going into a school
Sure.
year, and we appoint an attendance officer, and we do all that
I mean,
stuff.
if there's parts of the law that we can comply with easily enough without affecting the actual policy, because I mean, appointing someone doesn't affect our policy. It's
So-
already happening, it's just we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
formally vote on it.
Yeah. So it's something we certainly need to look at, right? So just like we didn't have someone that was really our liaison for safety, right? And we should have had that as well too. I've added that to my list. So we'll come back to it more than before the summer. And
Yeah, May, June,
All right.
whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
going into the year with everything.
So you have
else
a second policy on there, do you want to vote for that?
set. The dress code?
The dress code. Who wants to talk about our dress code? Who was, I think that was,
It was on my list as well. We had just recommended the revisions that we had presented to the school committee at the December 4th meeting to the current policy. So the revisions to the policy JICA in order to have a district policy that is most reflective of the current 3 schools handbook policies, because that's where the disconnect is. Basically, if you had taken a look at the revisions, it's really just the more specific language, the bulleted items, all of the narrative language, it would stay the same. And the commitment of, the administration piece, the commitment with the parents. But it's just those bulleted items that are really the change, that were more specific items.
and we really actually had a good conversation, from John and Cindy's lines, right? We heard from them as well as at the high school level. But we really, as an agreement, right now, we feel like this is the language we want, but we've actually added this on to our list during the summer. We need to get some surveys out to the families as well and students, and really feel like what's acceptable for a dress code policy. Not only that, but we want to also engage with other districts and see what's around us, like what exactly is West Boylston doing, what exactly are the other communities as well too. So we're recommending this right now.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve policy JICA student dress code as recommended? Jess?
Second.
Lisa? Any discussion?
I
Um,
think it's swung to a nice middle ground.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Thank you.
All right, so that motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee.
All right, the last one, Al.
Yep.
I don't think
So
too
let's-
many people are interested in this one. But
No.
Could you go ahead anyway?
Yes, we're going to talk about the approval of the Tohoto handbook. We're going to come to you with a couple of proposals that we're going to ask you to vote on. One that we're recommending. We heard what people have said. We read the emails that you guys have seen as well too. We've had many thoughtful conversations on what we should be having at Tohoto especially at this particular time that we're going to do. So we're going to this is going to walk us through a couple of proposals that we're looking at for the handbook for whether it's the F and what that looks like. We hear from parents. Lisa, you want to walk us through that, please?
So participation in athletics and extracurricular activities, as you've heard, is essential for many students as an opportunity to thrive in non-academic endeavors and become a well-rounded person. Through long discussions with the school council, department chairs, and the Athletic Handbook Review Committee, which will again be meeting tomorrow, all parties agreed that the policies as written in the handbook reflect both a focus on academics while supporting student involvement in activities. This is reflected in Proposal A with no change to the handbook. Understanding that the school committee has requested a revision of academic eligibility in the handbook, these same groups also agree that the existing policy with the following additional language, quote, if the student is failing one course and is participating in any extracurricular activities, to support academic success, the student must attend ACE Club or an extra help session 2 times per week until they are no longer failing that course during the next quarter or interim report, whichever comes first. If a student misses 2 consecutive sessions, the student will meet with the coach, advisor, and or administration. And if a student continues to miss sessions after this meeting, the student will not be able to continue participating in the extracurricular activities. This is proposed in the drive as option B.
We really feel like we can wrap our heads around option B, and we can do this here at the school. There shouldn't be, we have a little over 500 kids in our school. We should be watching them and paying close attention. If we see a student.
And we do.
I know you do. Sorry, I know you do.
And
Sorry.
we do pay very close
Yep.
attention. Just to give you an example, so at team meetings at the middle school level, there's a constant review of what's happening with those students. When we walk around during the day, we're very visible. I know I get stopped on multiple occasions. I know you have a great relationship with so-and-so. They haven't handed in their essay. If they don't, they're going to fail this quarter. I'm like, I'm on it. I go and have a conversation with that kid. Hey, where's that essay? This is what happens all day long. So I just want you guys to understand that this is what's happening.
Yeah. In our goal as educators is we don't want to see our kids fail, right? That should be something, and we're going to make sure we're putting these things in place so that along the way, if we see that a student is not, the work that we're doing now, but we're also going to use what we have called an ACE program, right? So to help those kids, like we heard people say, be well-rounded, right? We know the rigor of being an AP. We know the rigor of playing a sport. I mean, look, I'm tired at 10 of 8, and they're still starting their practices or games at this time. There's a lot, right, to go along with that. So our job is to make sure we're supporting them along the way so the child is not failing and that they're being successful. And they're doing it now. They absolutely are. Lisa, well said. But we want to make sure we're memorializing that as well, too, to make sure our kids are successful. And by the way, and I want to be very careful going back to what you were talking about earlier, Beth, when we look at our data, right, and they're showing the data, it is such a minuscule percentage of students right now that this would impact. It's just so small right now. And again, a little uncomfortable because I don't want to be too specific. It's not an impact. But now it's causing us to pay a little bit closer, a little bit eye on these and making sure that these students are going to be able to be successful academically and be successful at playing a sport or enrichment. Let's be careful about that, right? Enrichment. You look at the boys that were sitting behind you, the kids that are in the National Honor Society, the students that got inducted, the students that are also all in honors, right? This is what we're looking for, well-rounded students. And I have been in the opportunity to meet with college recruiters, and they're looking for the well-rounded student, not just a student that's an athlete or an extracurricular, but they're looking for the academic student as well, too, right? They're competing out there with them. So we want to make sure that we're giving those kids every opportunity to go to wherever they want to go to college and universities or their jobs. So this is what we could wrap feel comfortable with as well, too. We're bringing it to school committee. We feel it's important for you guys to have options and not just say, this is the one we want you to do. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
So Lisa, first of all, I love this, because the whole idea is to move these students towards success. And you're gonna give them some scaffolding for that, and I think that's great, that's the whole point. I noticed the second to the last sentence, it says if a student continues to miss sessions. And I felt like that was a little bit vague. Does that mean if they miss the next session, the third session, they're out? Does it mean they have to get to miss 2 or 3?
Like I would say they'd have to miss, 2 more after. Like, so if they miss the following 2, so we could change that to the following 2. So if the student misses like 4 consecutive sessions.
Okay. And then another question I had was, if our whole motivation with this is to get the students to be engaged in the academics and to try to, get themselves above water as well. Because we're here, our whole point of being here is academics. The sports are also part of it, but can we consider doing the ACE program for senior privilege? Because I can think of like seniors as well that might be motivated. Like, do they automatically not get it if they're?
So senior privilege is it's part of the academic day. So if they don't have, so if they're failing, they don't get senior privilege.
I understand that.
So then they would have to come to their study hall. They have to be in school. So we're forcing them to be in school. If they're not passing, they have to be in school.
I get that, and I totally support that. My point is, could they then be a part of the ACE program to help pull themselves out so the next semester they could have a senior privilege? Or is senior privilege just done if by the end of junior year you're failing a class, you don't get senior privilege at all the whole entire
Oh, no, it's per quarter.
Okay,
it's
that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah, it's per quarter. It's, so
That
each
makes
quarter.
sense.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That was my
Absolutely.
understanding.
Yeah.
And then the only other comment that I wanted to make, and I find this to be so hurtful that I've heard that that the school committee is motivated by a ranking or that we have individual agendas. We're volunteers and we do a ton of work. What you see in this meeting is a fraction of this, and we genuinely care about these kids. I don't want to be punitive to anyone, and I don't think that saying you can't play something or you can't do something is going to motivate a student to do it. I love this. I think this is a wonderful idea because that's really what we want. We want these students to be well-rounded. We want them to have opportunities. So I truly appreciate this. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's really good collaboration amongst us getting this work done. Anybody else?
Clarify, so the option 2 is not only sports and extracurriculars, but also senior privilege, correct?
No, well, senior privilege already has a no failure. That senior privilege is different because it's part of the academic day. So the extracurricular is like outside of the academic day.
Yeah, the senior privileges is because we have study halls here. Some schools have done away with study halls altogether. So if you have a study and you're a senior at the beginning of the day or the end of the day and you're in good standing, then you can have senior privilege.
And there are many seniors, to be honest with you, that don't have a study hall because they're taking a full course load, and oftentimes the kids who have a study hall can, in my experience, they tend to be signing out at the end of the day to go to work.
In this policy, this handbook, be careful, really shows a message to our students, right, that we're here to support you, right? So yes, take those AP classes, play a sport, we're gonna help you. It's not like, okay, you're on your own. Our job is to make sure that, and here we have it in writing, that we're gonna support you and we wanna make sure that you're successful with this. There's a little bit of irony in here, and I feel like I need to say, we've had conversations at the high school. So according to the MIAA and even our handbook, right, you get D- in all your classes. Everyone's good and everyone's okay to be playing a sport, playing everything, right, in all your classes, right? There's a little irony there. So we're making sure not only if our students failing, but if there's a student in jeopardy of not doing well and being in that failing category, D- or Fs, we want to make sure that we're getting these kids into this program. So now that goes a little bit along with that. We might be looking at talking to Aaron a little bit about, we might have to make a little bit of budget assessment with that ACE, little one-offs, but still we might need to get some additional support in that as well too. But in full disclosure, because I always promise you, I'd be upfront with the budget. But if we go with this, it might be a minimum amounts of money that we need to add to give some additional support in that.
So what is ACE?
ACE is, it is an after school peer tutoring club. So it used to be called peer assistance, and about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I reinstituted it and had high school students. And Matt, you were
I'm currently the president of the
currently the president, yes. And so originally there were a lot of middle school students that were having a hard time transitioning. And so we actually had large groups of middle school students come and are peer tutored by, high school students. And then it kind of got traction. And so students who are having trouble in, geometry or algebra 2, they're like, well, can someone in ACE help me with that? And yes, we can. So there is that opportunity. There's also opportunities for students to make appointments and go to after-school help with their teacher. Every teacher is required to have after-school hours, identified one day or make an appointment with the teacher for after-school help. So I don't know if Matt wants to add anything else to ACE, but it's a wonderful program.
It is really wonderful, and it's awesome because I've personally seen a lot of people benefit from it. My only is because I don't have it in front of me, but was it 2 sessions per week with the?
Correct, and I know that you guys are currently 1 session per week, and that's why we would have to do an additional advisor.
Because I can imagine, logistically speaking, that being difficult between the schedules of the students getting tutored, the schedules of people who are trying to tutor. I can imagine that being difficult to get 2 times a week.
So I think we're jumping the gun on voting something in
Sure.
that we haven't put the infrastructure in for. So shouldn't we put that in place
Well,
first
well,
and then vote?
Well, we do have the infrastructure right now for, it says 2 sessions. So one could be ACE and one could be the after-school session. So with the teacher, so that's
It has been my experience that we've been able to, a lot of times, I don't want to be specific, has been redirected to ACE Club. I think it'd be very difficult to meet the 2-day-a-week requirement without defaulting. I think we have to put it in place, see how it works out. I think we need a trial run. I think we're really, maybe for next year, but we haven't done it yet.
If you vote not to go this direction, then we have to, based on
nobody's going to do it.
Based on what you're recommending, right, and what we're going to put in the student handbook will help us give it. That's one.
So if we approve it, you will put the infrastructure in place.
And again, I know we've got a lot of emails as school committee, and we've been working hard on this. This is work that on top of our day-to-day operations, you just got to give us some time, right? And I know there's a lot of misunderstandings out there, whether it be the attendance, whether it be this. This is work that we've been working on in meeting and making sure that we can give to school committee 2 proposals that we can live with both of them and make sure that we can not just live it, but implement for our kids as well too.
And we're not talking droves of students.
That's right,
either.
yes.
We're not talking droves of students. I mean, we have students for after school, for detention, and and it could be for tardies or whatever. I had a student in my office, and we were doing biology. I was like, okay, I see right here, this is not good. So okay, crack open. Let's go through your binder. So we do that, and that would be considered a session.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So there could be some flexibility for what you would check off as having received the bonus.
Yes.
So there will be opportunities, right? So
Yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned data or research or whatever, but you have students now who are doing things. Of the current winter sport students who are playing right now, if this had been in place since September, are there any students who are playing right now who would have received an F on their previous report card?
I
Give us names. No. Are there any?
So minimal, it's not even percentage wise. It's so minimal.
Is so minimal 0 or more than 0?
I'm sorry, could you, just a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Do you mean as a part of that current handbook policy that follows the MIA?
No, I'm just
or-
saying, let's say this had been in place in September like we asked last year. Are there any students who are currently playing a winter sport right now who would have missed out on playing that sport because they failed on their most recent report card?
There were some that did,
It's okay.
that are not currently playing.
Yes.
That are not currently playing. No, for any current
Because they had
student.
2 Fs.
Right,
He's
Right.
asking if there's anyone with 1 F, but
Yeah.
that's very specific.
right. It is specific.
That's very specific, yeah.
Right. And it's not appropriate.
I'm not asking for a name
Yeah.
or a grade level or a class.
What
Or
there
even
had
a
been
team.
some.
Yes.
Yes.
So this would have helped them be able to play.
And as much as the great work that happened at Tonto, it's going to hold us, all of us, everyone in this room as well too, all of us, a little bit more accountable, right? We're going to make sure that we're giving everything we can to make sure these kids are successful so they can do both things.
So if we had had this in place in September, there are students who are right now not able to play a sport who quite possibly could be.
No, because that would have been, I mean, perhaps.
Because you would have had this written and documented and enforced extra help.
That would have been, so there are students right now that were not eligible to play a winter sport because they had failed 2 core subjects.
Okay,
Because that's the MIAA
Yeah.
policy.
right.
That would, I don't know how we go against that, like we.
No.
Right.
If this had been in place and you were forcing them to go to ACE Club 2 times a week, if they miss 2 sessions, they have a meeting with administration and parents, get your act together, let's go, what help do you need? Come on, we're gonna help you. It's very well possible that you could have got them to be
Assuming that they played a
eligible.
fall sport.
That's the tricky piece, exactly.
What's that? I didn't
They
hear
would
that.
have only gotten picked up if they played soccer and then.
No,
weren't allowed.
the question was, is there a student right now who would be playing a winter sport who is not playing a winter sport because they got Fs on their most recent report card? You answered yes.
I think we're getting.
It's like a confusing
It's a
question.
confusing question.
So
because
2
It's
Fs,
not
they
confusing.
cannot,
It's not
they
confusing.
cannot play. There are.
Right now, we're saying our handbook says if you have 1 F, you can't play, right? Is that what our handbook
You
says?
can
No.
play. You
Can't, you
play
can't,
with
right, you
1
can't,
F.
right,
two
right, so you have
Fs.
2 Fs, right,
we followed the current MIA policy.
right, so you can have an F and still play, yes,
Correct.
right. If you have 2 Fs, you can't play.
That's correct.
Okay, and your answer to that question was, yes, there are students who fit that bucket of 2 Fs and they're not playing right now.
Correct.
Right, so if we had a program in place, I don't know why we need to have a program in place, but if we had had this as written in place, it's very possible they would have been noticed, could have got that extra help, and maybe one of those Fs could have turned into a pass.
Complementing the program.
Sure.
He's
Yes,
saying,
yes.
if you had had, if
Don't look into it more than it
yes.
is. The only other piece, you're absolutely right, yes.
So why aren't we just doing this as
So
a
we're
matter of
not-
course?
But I think they are.
We are doing it.
But now-
We are doing it, it's just memorialized.
We don't always know who's going to sign up to try out for a sport either.
All right.
And the only other piece, sorry.
How do those students who want to play, when we have this available,
Yeah.
attend this here?
Because nobody's looking to punish anybody. As Lori said, it's not punishment. It's just, it's all extracurriculars, but student athletes typically are held to a higher standard in a lot of areas. You travel to an away game, you dress up a little bit, right? Your behavior on and off the field, there are different rules that coaches might have. So to hold a student athlete to a higher standard isn't discriminating anyone. It's just what you have to do for a privilege. So I like this policy. Lori asked some really good questions about the number of days. How many days would it be? Is it arbitrary? And Lisa, you mentioned an additional 2 days. Okay, so that's 4 total.
4 consecutive days.
So I have a problem with consecutive. I do have an issue with consecutive. I feel like you could end up gaming the system that way if it's consecutive, because you just go to 1 a week and then you're never missing consecutive.
It's per week, is it?
It says 2 per week, yeah. Yeah,
And
so
I think that
this
the
says,
coaches will vote, once the coaches coaches are now involved.
Mhm.
I imagine that if we empower the coaches and we encourage the coaches to motivate the students to keep their grades up. And we should be recognizing teams that have great GPAs.
I mean, I expect that's going on now, right?
We are. And again, this is just holding us a little bit more calm. Let me just be really clear. I know everyone spoke today. The emails I got from parents as well too that said, let me just tell you, Superintendent Gam, if my child gets a C- or a D, they're not playing any sport, right? Because parents aren't letting them play. So some of the things that that we're hearing as well too. So we're just trying to memorialize what school committee has asked, right? To give a second option. We're presenting this to you. We feel like this is something both of these we can implement and be successful with it and monitor it as well too.
And I think, Superintendent Gannon, I do believe that you just brought up an excellent point. It is the parents' prerogative to hold their child accountable to any standard that they want.
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely. But no matter what, if you're failing 2 classes because I'm just trying to be clear on this. If you fail 2 classes, you can't go to ACE Club and still play because the MIAA says, too bad, you failed 2 classes, you're not playing. So this only applies to kids that are failing 1 class instead of 2.
No, the point of this is to catch them before that grade closes.
That's right.
But it says they are only going to be, the policy is if a student is failing 1 course. So, I mean, there should be something else. I think we've all said this, the school is, the teachers or whoever is paying attention. If a kid is about to fail, maybe they should go to ACE Club. And I don't know if that's probably already happening.
It's already happening. That is already.
There's like notices like your grade is now an A, your grade is now a B.
Yeah. So
And I get whatever. We're in the business of making sure our kids are successful, right? We should not want any of our children to have an F. If we as educators are given an exam and we have multiple kids failing that exam, we have to look at our practices, right? So we want to make sure we're giving kids every opportunity to be successful. So we might have to look at it a little different. Sally and I have been talking about some of the professional learning we're going to be looking at the secondary level, right? There's a lot of pieces of this. So we understand that we want all our students to be successful. We think this is a thing that we can put in place and be able to do it. We're already doing it now. We're going to try to expand it so we can catch every student and make them be a successful athlete or have extracurricular activities as well.
Can I offer 3 suggestions though?
Sure.
Can we remove the word consecutive? Can we clarify Lori's point about continuing to miss, meaning 4 total?
Yep.
And where it says we'll meet with coach and administration, can we add parent?
Okay, so here we are, January, already don't have a handbook that's sort of been approved by school committee. I guess I want to spend a little time with Tahato and talking about removing consecutive, continuing to miss, and coach admin. I think the one that concerns me most is that parent one, right? Parents being notified is one thing, right? Absolutely notifying parents. That's, I think, the work they do now. Meeting with a parent, I know it's semantics, but that's time and parent schedule. You talk about dentist and doctor's appointments. Having a parent miss not being able to attend these meetings, or
okay, all right. So maybe we don't say parent must attend, but
parent
must be notified of the meeting.
I think they notify parents now if a child's not being successful.
Right. There are so many. I think it's. I hope that everybody in school committee understands how incredibly important the work that all of us we know it's incredibly important, and we take it very, very seriously, and we don't necessarily. And I appreciate the safeguards. I really appreciate the safeguards that are trying to be put into place. But we don't need to be micromanaged at this level because we are doing so much already. And sometimes the students who are failing are the students that need the most care, and that we have wrapped them up with supports. We talk to them on the daily. We sit down at lunch with them. We do all kinds of things to support them. And sometimes the student who fails needs more, or is battling burdens or carrying burdens that are far greater than anyone in this room we can solve right here with micromanaging something. We want all our kids to be very successful. Do we love 4-hour meetings close to that? No. But when we're at our schools with our students, just aside, I had the best day today because I was in a class, like 2 different classes teaching and being with the kids and seeing how they're doing and seeing what they know. So being visible and being connected to our students, we run failure reports all the time. Where are the kids at? Our guidance department is on point. They're like, okay, do we notice there's a kid who's dropping in these areas? This really is happening. I want to assure you that we're not like 9 to 5 in it.
Yeah, Lisa, I don't think anybody doubts what you're saying.
No. Okay.
Using the term micromanaging, not great. All right. But I think our shock was that, we saw there, if you get an F, you can still play, versus it was, if you're failing, we need a documented, institutionalized way to make sure you don't fail.
Yep.
And it's not a punishment, it's more a message. We have a mission statement. We have the BBRSD Tohoto mission statements. It's a mission statement to say, the privileges that you have of being a student, being in a club, extracurriculars, doing all this, is because of the hard work you put in the classroom. Aaron was mentioning the minimum contribution that schools are required to pay for schools, and every school goes above that because they want above that for their students. And that's all it is. So I think this is a great compromise. I just think the way it's worded, missing 2 consecutive sessions allows this to become, they only have to go to 1 session.
And to Mike's point, what I take from that, and I don't know if this is what you mean, but it takes 3 weeks to change a habit, right? To make a habit.
Right.
It's not that we're trying to penalize the student, saying you have to do 2. It's the whole idea that we're trying to lift them up and have effective change. And so that was my concern with the 4 sessions, or is that I'm trying to help these kids. And I know that you know that. I'm not. But I just want to make sure, like, I sense frustration, and I think people just aren't hearing. Like, I think there's an assumption as to what the motivations are, and it really is genuinely, we want to help the kids as much as you do. So it's not, like, I don't look at it as micromanaging. I look at it as, we want them to be helped, that's all.
I think everyone's intentions are good here, right? We want our kids to be
Absolutely.
successful.
And I apologize for using that term. I just couldn't, like,
we're like
needling.
I think what she's trying to say is that what you're trying to do and how we're going to be able to implement it. That's all. And being able to make sure. So arranging parent conferences, making sure, like, who's checking off every single time that whether it's consecutive or not consecutive.
All right, so we remove that parent that I suggested. Okay, that's fine. And the notice that goes out is something like, your child is,
which we do already,
is going along this course, and if they miss 2 more, then they're in danger of not being able to play in the Super Bowl next year.
Or participate in extracurricular activities or all of that. We're concerned.
And it's not like we can't revisit it if there's issues that
That's
arise.
right. Well, I was going to ask that, Jess. That's a good point. Yeah, I'd like, whatever we come to an agreement on, yes, I would like to see some data on this.
Sure.
How many kids it's helping, how many kids are falling into this.
So can I, 2 things. We need a handbook approved.
Yep.
We need a handbook approved tonight. So I understand that's what you're saying and all that. We just need to get a handbook approved. It's January. And again, I without being so uncomfortable, the percentage that we're talking about is so minuscule that you just need to know that, right? So
Lisa, you and your administrative team is recommending the highlighted option
2 or B.
The ACE option 2.
Yes.
Yeah, like for ACE Club and all that. Okay.
Can we, is the word consecutive a big issue? It is
So I don't know
solidifying it to 2 after the meeting.
Renee, what are you thinking? I can tell you're thinking that.
My only concern, if I may just have one, it's really just a comment as we keep talking about this, is that we co-op with many other towns. If we and this is really just a comment, okay? This is no, but just thinking about if we change our policy against the state and we're co-oping with several other towns for several other sports, how is that going to play into our participation level, our potential co-ops in the future? It's just something to consider. It hasn't really been brought up tonight, but it is something, if we're going to change this language and now we're going to get really into specifics, something to consider. We're changing something pretty, it seems like it's at our level, but it then ends up being more than that when we're considering how many different teams we do co-op with.
So if a kid fails though, and we're co-oping with a sport, he can't play at all anyway, or fails twice.
Fails twice.
Fails twice, no, because that's
So
that's
really
the
impacts
state
everyone.
policy.
That's everybody, yeah.
I don't know. Is it really that difficult to say that if a kid's in danger of failing on their report card, that we're going to get them some extra help after school?
We agree. We
Agree
absolutely
with that,
agree.
yeah.
And we're just memorializing.
So if that's the case,
We're memorializing.
So if that's the case, why does it matter if it's? So we're saying you got to go twice a week, but if you miss something, you've got to be consecutive before you have this meeting. Why can't we just say if you miss 2? How many weeks are we talking about in a quarter?
It would be if you missed 4.
No. How many weeks in a quarter? 9, 10?
They will set up an
10-ish?
intervention call. They will set up an
Okay,
intervention.
so 10-ish. So that's 2 a week. If you miss 2, I was going to suggest missing 5. Lori wants to miss 4, but I just feel like I just feel like consecutive is just an opportunity for this to become once a week, and then they're not necessarily getting the help they need. Maybe they need help with the teacher, but they're only relying on the ACES program, or vice versa, whatever it might be. I just feel like it's a way to miss out on what we're trying to do.
So I don't know if your document, is it run off as a PDF and then loaded, or is your
Yes.
document
Yeah.
live?
Yes.
PDF.
PDF.
Okay, so I'm working on the live document. So so changing the language, this first sentence stays in place.
All it would do is remove the word consecutive.
So if a student misses 2 sessions, the student will meet with the coach and administration. The parent will be notified, adding that in, the parent will be notified. And if a student misses 4 sessions after this meeting, so it would be a total of 6 sessions.
Yeah.
Okay, 6, yeah. So
After
it's
this
like
meeting, the
3
student,
times.
Finish that statement after this meeting,
after this meeting, the student will not be able to continue participating in extracurricular activities. They would have to miss 6 total sessions to not participate.
3 weeks.
So essentially, you can still fail, but going to this ACE club is showing you're trying, you're
Correct.
putting the effort in,
Correct.
and then you can play.
Correct.
Or do your activities.
Correct.
And our goal is to make sure that no one's failing, right? We're going to put all these things in place that they're
Yeah.
already putting in place. We're just memorializing them and making sure that our students are going to be successful in both things.
But
And
if
you're not
the kid
waiting
is-
for that grade to close.
That's right.
You're catching them before that happens.
That's right.
Yeah,
And now it holds the student a little bit more accountable as well too, so they have to go.
yeah,
Okay.
no, this is good, because this is giving those kids that might fail and, I hear what you're saying. People have burdens and
Yep.
that could be why they fail. This is giving those people a chance.
Correct.
To
Yes.
improve and an olive branch and their
All right.
peers and hopefully an advisor.
So I'm going to make a motion,
All
but
right.
before I do, when we use the term extracurricular, that's covering athletics as well?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So can I have a motion to approve the Tohoto handbook amended with the following language? If a student is failing one course and is participating in any extracurricular activities to support academic success, the student must attend the ACE Club and/or an extra help session 2 times per week until they are no longer failing that course during the next quarter or interim report, whichever comes first. If a student misses 2 sessions, the student will meet with the coach and administration. Parents will be notified. And if a student continues to miss 4 sessions after this meeting, the student will not be able to continue participating in extracurricular activities. That is a motion.
So moved.
Megan and Lisa, any more discussion?
Rich, Renee, Lisa, we can implement that successfully. Yes? Yes? Yes?
Any discussion? All, yeah, Jess, go ahead.
Stages 2 failures, our current policies, 1 failure, this is in the middle, giving additional, formalizing additional supports.
For that one failure.
Yeah.
For that one
Yep.
failure.
We're coming up with options for you guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Nice work, Tato. Nice work.
Okay, almost 8:30, we're going to enter into executive session, and we will not return to open session. May I have a motion to enter executive session and not return to open session, executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, BBA, CBA, and litigation, Kiniski versus BUSD, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Also, executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual.
So moved. Second.
Lori and Jess, could I have a roll call vote, please, with Beth? Jess? Lisa? Lori? Megan? I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much.